Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our City Council meeting on June 2nd, 2026. Let the record reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Washington, who will be joining us shortly, well, in about 45 minutes. So we have our opening ceremony today as by the Ogden Ogden Police Honor Guard. And we will turn the time to them for instructions and our flag ceremony.
Honor guard, halt, left face, present, arms.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Close, colors. Honor guard, face. Forward, march.
The audience may be seated. Each month, as part of our special flag ceremony for the America 250 year, we read a little bit about the founding of our country, and today we're going to read a little something about common sense. It's a plainly written pamphlet of political ideas released in January of 1776. Increased public conversation about the future of America. Addressed to the inhabitants of America, the pamphlet titled Common Sense was read by or read aloud to hundreds of thousands of people within months of its release. The unsigned text was written by Thomas Paine. It was earth-shattering in its rebuke of the British monarchy and the ideas of America's inherent democratic inclinations stemming from its beginnings, experiences, and diverse population, and its distance from England. It described the population as America's and proposed a context for an independent future. Paine argued that the cause of America should not just be a revolt against taxation, but a demand for independence. More than any other single publication, Common Sense paved the way for the Declaration of Independence, unanimously ratified on July 4th, 1776. During the war that followed, Paine's great contribution to the patriot cause was the 16 crisis papers issued between 1776 and 1783, each one signed Common Sense. The American Crisis, number 1, published on December 19, 1776, when George Washington's army was on the verge of disintegration, so moved Washington that he ordered it read to all the troops at Valley Forge. Its opening is among the most stirring passages in the literature of the American Revolution. And this is the passage. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, yet we have the consolation with us that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. Britain, with an army to enforce her tyranny, has declared that she has a right not only to tax, but to bind us in all cases whatsoever. And if being bound in that manner is not slavery, then there is not such thing as slavery upon the earth. Even the expression is impious, for so unlimited a power can belong only to God. What a powerful thing. And if you were there at the time, it would be much more emotional than it is sitting in this room. Grateful for those founders of our country. All right. Can we all please join in a moment of silence? Thank you. Are there any acknowledgments from council members?
Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I would like to acknowledge that June is Pride Month, and I'd like to do it in the context of America's 250 and thinking back about the founding of our country and the great compromise that was our Constitution. And I think within those compromises there was acknowledgement that in order to form a more perfect union, there would need to be progress in the future. And I think we've seen so much progress in the way of civil rights. And in my lifetime, I think it's specifically been among LGBTQ rights. And it's been really humbling to reflect on that. And I see that mostly in how, in my children, in the school system that they exist in, when I reflect on the time when I went to school, and what the environment must have been for LGBTQ youth at that time, and the progress I've made personally through that time. And so I think Pride Month is a great time for us to reflect on that progress, and also understand that we live in a time of progress and backlash, and that in the midst of backlash, progress will come in the future as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and thank you for that time.
You bet. Any other acknowledgments?
May I?
Yes. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge and highlight one of our local Ogden City business, Javier Authentic Mexican Restaurant. They turned 35 years in business. It's a wow. As a business owner, I can tell every year is different. Every year is more harder. And they live here in Ogden, they grow here in Ogden, and they continue to participate here in Ogden. So I just want to highlight that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, we will move on to the next item, which is approval of minutes. The first set of minutes was the work session of May 5th, 2026, and the closed session of May 19th, 2026. Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes, Chair, I've reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
And the regular meeting of May 5th, 2026. Councilmember Lundell.
Thank you, Chair. I've reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
I need a motion.
And I would motion that we approve those minutes.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Councilmember Lundell, a second by Councilmember Ritchie to approve the minutes. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Okay, next item is our consent items. There are 5. The proposed executive municipal officer compensation, the proposed utility enterprise fund transfers, the proposed fiscal year 2027 to 2031 capital improvement plan, the fiscal year 2026 through 2027 salary schedules, and the proposed fiscal year 2026 through 2027 arts grants funding. We typically will pass these in one motion unless somebody wants to pull it for individual discussion.
Chair, I would make a motion. We are setting a public hearing for all 5 of these items for June 16th, 2026. I motion that we adopt the consent items as listed on the agenda.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, Councilmember Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Graff, to accept these items and set the public hearings for June 16th. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next item is our public hearings, the proposed fiscal year 2025 through 2026 year-end budget amendment. And we have Mr. Justin Sorensen here to present to us today. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to come and present to you this budget opening, this ordinance, which amends the city budget for the fiscal year 2026. There are several items. See, that's the one for work session. Sorry. There we go. Appreciate it. I know it's a lot to keep straight, so thanks, Brandon. Is there a clicker?
There is. I'm sorry. It's over here. Striking out today. I'm sorry.
All right. So with this budget opening, this is a large budget opening for your consideration tonight. There are several items in here. Typically, I'll go through and list everything, but I wanted to provide some context as to what this budget does, because it appears a lot bigger than it truly is, and that's partially because of government accounting and fund accounting and how we need to account for certain things. And so with that, just as a high overview, that this budget does include grants and related expenditures of just over $950,000. It includes some one-time funding sources of just over $16.6 million. But then also as part of this, because again, with different funds and how we account for things, there are internal transfers and accounting adjustments of just under $4.5 million in this budget as well. And so a lot of these entries are required for compliance, and they don't necessarily represent additional citywide spending. And so the total appropriation for your consideration is $22,020,900. So when I gave this presentation to you in work session a few weeks ago, I went through all the different items and the different funds and then kept referring to the fleet equipment that we would be talking about. I thought it'd be important to talk about that first, and then I'll go into the actual funds and the adjustments within those funds. A large portion of this budget opening is to increase the budget to be able to purchase additional equipment. But I had some numbers. I apologize. For context, so in this budget opening, there's a proposal to use different various sources to be able to purchase some needed equipment replacement. The city currently has, and this is the numbers, I apologize, over $35 million in assets, and quite a bit in number of units. And I apologize, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I thought I had in my presentation, but. So we have a process in place where we currently, as we purchase equipment, we have leases that we assign to those to try to account for those replacements in an estimated life cycle. So for example, a police car, we will take the cost of that vehicle and we'll say we anticipate that it will last 5 years. We add on an inflationary factor and then also an additional amount required for operating and maintenance for that vehicle, and then we charge that as a lease rate back to whoever the vehicle belongs to. And so we do this process through our internal service fund called Fleet and Facilities. And so they're the ones that maintain those vehicles, and then they charge back this lease rate to whoever owns them. And so we have a replacement budget that we do through the adopted budget each year. And with that, we're able to maintain as much as we can. And over the years, we've gotten closer and closer to being fully caught up with replacement. But at different times, there's been a need to infuse extra funds beyond these lease rates. And so before you tonight is a proposal to infuse some extra funds into our fleet replacement. A lot of this equipment that we're looking to replace are 10 plus years old. The 10 pickup trucks, those are all 2014s. We have other items, and so you can imagine there are a lot of high use vehicles and equipment, and so in order to continue to operate where we need, there is at times where we need to infuse a little extra funds to be able to do this. And so I'll go through, but in total, there's $3.8 million that would be replaced in this list. 1.7 is already appropriated in the budget this year. This budget opening includes adding funds from B and C funds, which are restricted for certain uses, also using some enterprise funds from water, refuse, storm. And then in looking at this and looking at our need, we had a delta of about 800,000 to be able to catch up with these. And so where we sit with our fund balance, we're proposing to use 800,000 in fund balance from the general fund to also make up that difference, to be able to provide this replacement and get a lot of these pieces of equipment caught up. And then there's also the addition of a couple items that the golf fund will be paying for. So with that in mind, these are the proposed changes within the general fund. So the first one is an adjustment. We have a payroll contingency account in non-departmental that's budgeted each year. And the reason that's there is for any overages that we may experience within budgets that, and typically we'll look within a specific department or division to try to cover those overages, but at times there is a need to pull from this payroll contingency. So the first item there is to move 50,000 from payroll contingency for wages and benefits within the city council budget. In non-departmental, the changes there, in the past 3 years, we've come before you and we've done a couple budget openings where we've used interest income that we anticipate that we're going to receive to stay compliant with our fund balance that we are required to stay under at the end of the year. Sometimes we don't know where that's going to end up. And at this point, what we're estimating for interest income, we're proposing a use of that interest income for a few different things. The first one being $2 million that we would propose to transfer out of the general fund to our CIP fund. And then the use of those funds is proposed as part of the fiscal year 27 budget. And then the next one is within the general fund, we have a small expense contingency that at times, if we have unexpected expenses that come up, that we propose through city council to be able to use. We're proposing to use 7,000 of those funds to transfer to the airport. And the purpose of this is we have a large project with the South Apron project, which has over $4 million of federal funds. And we've already used, I believe it was about 400,000 of city funds. There's a portion of the project that doesn't qualify for grant spending. It's about 157,000. And so this budget opening addresses that delta that we have. And so 7,000 would be coming from the general fund, and the other 150,000 I will talk about in a moment. The other items in this budget opening, there's the use of fund balance of 800,000 that would be transferred to the fleet fund for equipment purchases and replacement. We also are proposing 150,000 from fund balance. The Mercy car box project that we have, with restoring that, there's also an enclosure, and the cost for that enclosure to do a full enclosure was more than anticipated. And so this is to be able to finish that project. And so this will be the final amount needed for that for the Mercy car, so that we would transfer that to the CIP fund. We'd also propose adding more interest income that we expect to receive. And this will be used for our downtown promotions as part of our ODA agreement that we have. And then the next one is for the police department. Again, interest income, using interest income of the amount of $2 million. And this is to add to the wages and benefits for the police department. We've talked about this a little bit, but just again, as a reminder, the police department has found a lot of success this year in being able to stay fully staffed and at times over, based on having those floating positions available. And what this has done is it's caused us to be over budget. And so for compliance and legally, we have to have enough budget in place. And so we're proposing to increase this budget by $2 million to cover those overages. And again, was talked about today in work session with the police chief about everything around this. So for the public services department, the changes that we're proposing there is using again some interest income and also a transfer from other funds. And this is to add funding for community cleanup funding. The reason that we need to do this at this point in the year is for the last couple of years, we've been able to use grant funds to support this. This is for us to hire a vendor that's gone out and supported our different groups in cleaning up areas of the city that where there's a lot of camps to be able to and not put our employees at risk in being the ones doing all that. And so we've used up those grant funds this year. And so as part of that, we need some additional funds, and this would add some funds for that. The next one is the use of restricted funds from B and C to be able to purchase some piece of equipment for the streets division. And then the last one is a use of fund balance to be able to cover our utilities for the water for parks. Each year we budget a certain amount to cover this is so for water usage. And over time as rates have gone up, but also as because the state's also required us to meter ourselves as we've implemented those meters and installed meters, that's driven those costs, the expenses higher than we had budgeted for. So this is to correct that. So the total increase to the general fund is just over $5.9 million. In the CIP fund, this would recognize the $2 million coming from the general fund that would be allocated for future projects. And then also it includes the recognition of the $150,000 for the Mercy Car project for the enclosure. And then the other item in the CIP fund is to move $150,000 out of the project contingency that we hold in that fund and move that as well to the South Apron and the airport fund, again, to make up that difference for the ineligible grant expenditures related to the South Apron project. So this is a budget of $2.1 million for the CIP fund. In the water fund, again, with the discussion of the equipment, we're proposing to use some retained earnings in the water fund of $546,000 for a couple of for a track hoe and a pickup truck. And then also recognizing a state grant that the city received for some lead service line inventory for part of that. So there's a $100,000 recognition there. The total increase to the water fund of $646,000. In the refuse fund, again, using retained earnings to be able to purchase a couple of pickup trucks that are related that the refuse fund uses. And then in the airport fund, we would recognize that $157,000 that's coming from the CIP fund and the general fund to use on the South Apron project. And then also we did receive some state funds for our Runway 321 project, which also had grant funds and city funds. This is an additional $22,000 that was awarded to the city for that Runway 321 overlay they did. In the golf fund, there's a few items that we're proposing there. The first one is the use of retained earnings out of the golf fund to be able to purchase a couple new pieces of equipment. This is so that they can be more efficient with some of the things that they're doing. So to add a couple of greens rollers, a sweeper, and a sprayer. These pieces of equipment will be added to the fleet replacement, and they would be charged a lease rate back to the golf fund to be able to cover these replacements in the future. This is to be able to purchase those items. And then also a use of retained earnings for a few different improvements at both golf courses. $21,000 for deck refurbishment at Mount Ogden, $39,000 to be able to do some storm drain repairs at Mount Ogden as well, and then also $13,000 to do fiber install at El Monte. So a total of $187,000 in the golf fund, which of those are all coming from golf retained earnings. In the storm sewer fund, using retained earnings there for some additional purchase of equipment. And then also recognizing a state grant, the UORG, of $169,000. This will be used at the kayak park for improvements there. In the Fleet and Facilities Fund, a majority of this is recognizing the revenues to be able to purchase the equipment. So Fleet would then purchase the equipment, and we would recognize the revenue coming in from all these other sources that have been discussed. So this includes the golf equipment, all the replacement equipment using the different various sources as described, as well as the $800,000 from the general fund. This is an increase in Fleet and Facilities of just over $2 million. In the miscellaneous grants, there's a lot here. I don't know if I won't list every single one, but know that highlight just a few of those ones that are being appropriated here. We're proposing to recognize some donations for the PATH program in the amount of $20,000. And then we also have several different state and local grants that the police department has been able to go and get to be able to use for wages, supplies, equipment, and travel, various different things, education. And so all those different items are listed there that we would recognize, and all the different places those are coming from. So this is a good show of what our grant writers have been able to do in going and getting grants. Additionally, in the fire department, there's a couple of grants that are being recognized that would be for equipment and wages. And then for CED, again, there's some ramp grants, state grants, and other local grants that are being recognized to be able to do various things, including programming at Union Station, part-time wages at Union Station, other improvements, small improvements at Union Station, an Olympic Pride mural, and also funding for the First Friday Art Stroll. So those that are all related to our CED department. And then for public services, it's recognizing a Carol White grant. This is for recreation. And then also we got some a donation from the Rocky Mountain Power Foundation to be able to use this for classes and programming at Marshall White. And then also we received funding related to the Learn to Swim from GEHA. So this is recognizing those funds as well to be able to support swim lessons for youth. So all of these are the total increase in our grants fund is just over $500,000, and this is all money that we were able to go out and find to be able to support various departments throughout the city. The last part of this budget opening is related to our Weber Morgan Strike Force and the Marshall White Community Center Special Purpose Entity. That's a mouthful. The Weber Morgan Strike Force, this is to recognize additional state funds that were received for training and education in the amount of $50,000. And then for the Marshall White Center SPE, this is to recognize all the transactions, everything related to the creation of the SPE. If you remember, this was the entity created so that the city could receive new markets tax credit funding that was able to support the Marshall White Center construction. We were able to have an additional $2 million to go towards the Marshall White Center when that was being built. So this is just a true-up of everything related to that transaction. So that's a large portion of this budget opening, but the total increase for your consideration is a total of $22,020,900. Any questions?
Any questions for Justin? So you've presented on both of these items?
On this item, yes.
Okay.
Or, sorry, no, on just this item.
Okay. Any questions for Justin about this item? Okay.
Thank you.
Hearing none, Chair, I would like to make a motion to.
We got to have a public hearing first.
Oh.
So this is a public hearing, so please feel free to come forward if you're wanting to talk about the fiscal year 2025-2026 year-end budget amendments. That's for this item only. Is there anybody online? Go ahead, Laura. If you're
Laura Lewis, Ogden city resident. I just have a question. I saw a lot of funds being transferred to the airport. Is that because they're exceeding their budget and so more money is being put into that? Or is this for extra projects out there that weren't originally planned for? Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Try and get you an answer. Did we discover if anyone was online? Doesn't look like it. Okay.
Chair, not seeing any other movement. I'd make a motion we close the public hearing on this issue.
Okay, we've got a motion to close the public hearing by Councilmember Ritchie, seconded by Councilmember Myers. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed on this item. So now let's go ahead and have your motion.
Yes,
Do you
Chair.
want to address the question about airport?
Yes, we do, actually. Justin's on his way. Sorry about that.
That's a great question. So with that project, the South Apron project, when they went out to bid, we had a certain amount of federal funds available and a certain amount of general fund, of city funds available that were used as match. There was a small portion of that project that is ineligible for federal funding. And so because of the amount that we have in city match already, it wasn't quite enough for the difference in that contract. So the $157,000 is to be able to do that full project, which is over $4.5 million, the total project. So,
Okay, that answer your question?
I'm not sure. So are we over budget?
Okay, no. He's shaking his head no.
Chair, can I clarify
Yes,
something
please.
too?
Mayor, go ahead.
So no, it's not over budget. What we're doing is providing seed money with city to leverage many times over using federal grants and funds. Those federal grants are going to go somewhere and my directive to our team is they might as well come here. Portions of the project, small portions, don't qualify for federal funds. And so, no, we're not short money, but the federal funds can't cover that to qualify. It would be inappropriate, so we're just putting a little bit of extra city funds in to round it out. But it would be a big mistake to do a project of $4.5 million in scale and scope and then to miss a $150,000 portion while we're there. So we're leveraging a lot of efficiencies to do that without having to hit our own taxpayers.
Okay, all right.
Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve this proposed ordinance 2026-11, addressing the anticipated year-end needs, including budget increases, and maintain current operational and capital priorities.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Myers, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to adopt proposed ordinance 2026-11. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez. Councilmember Lundell.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes. And former Councilmember Choberka slipped in, and I did not see her. We'd like to acknowledge former council members when they come. So she is with us today, so welcome. Okay. All right. Proposed year 2026, 2027 tentative budget. Mr. Symes, welcome.
Thank you very much, Council. So if I'm glad you mentioned former Council Member Choberka. If you didn't, I was going to. So this presentation is pretty similar to what you heard a couple of weeks ago. There's a couple of minor changes. So for those who have heard it, I apologize. For those who haven't, hopefully it will be helpful. And for former Council Member Choberka, hopefully this is a reminder of what she's missing. Okay, so I mentioned this is pretty much what I gave a couple of weeks ago, with the exception of a couple of things, which is the Schedule A amendments, which I'll touch on, and the public comment options, which I forgot to add in my presentation a couple of weeks ago. So just to jump right in, when we talk about the resources that are available, there are quite a few resources if people want to follow along with the budget. This includes the proposed budget book, the mayor's presentation from the 5th, all of the line item budgets, agenda packet materials, budget-specific information, staff presentations, and then the audio and video from the work sessions and the council meetings. And again, I'll touch on these as we go through. So here's where a person would find those on the city's budget page, on the agendas and minutes page, and then the council's budget page. And again, I'll touch on all of these. So if you go to the main city page and you hover over the government tab, you can go down to the budgets and financial statements or budget and finance page, and you can see all those resources available there. If you go to that same main page and hover over the government tab and go to the agendas and minutes, and then go to the city council's agendas and minutes, there you'll find all the agendas, presentations, results, video, multimedia. They're all for all the meetings on that page. As I mentioned, the council does have its own budget page, and there's a little bit more information on there. So it's a little bit more about the process and some resources that are available. But also on the city's council page, we do, and you'll notice this has been updated for the FY27 budget that you're considering right now. If you want to take a deep dive into a particular department, all of the department-specific information is broken out. So if you want to dive deep on police or fire, you can get the budget presentations, you can get the reports, you can watch the video that jumps to that time. So you can get that information there from the council's budget page. So I also mentioned the line item budgets. Those are available on the main city page, and we typically will include those in our packet materials. So if you go to the agenda, you click on an agenda item, it brings up a memo and some other information, but we do try to include the line item budgets for each of the presentations and the memos and reports that we write. And then I try to plug these as much as possible. If you really want to see what's changing in the budget, this is a bit of a narrative form, but it goes through all the changes in the budget, why budgets went up, why they went down, what the consideration was, what the change was. And these are just a fantastic resource if you want to get a better idea of what's changing year over year, rather than going through all those line item budgets where it's hard to tell what's actually happening. So these are attached to the reports that we do publish as part of the agenda, but they are available with the budget packet too on the budget page. So just quickly to go over the schedule and what you've done so far. So you started your budget deliberations in May. So May 5th, you heard from the employee groups. And then over the next couple of work sessions, May 12th and May 19th, you heard from different departments and some other topics like general fund revenue, BDO lease revenue, and the utility enterprise fund transfer. And then last week, you finished it off with a couple of other departments and some other topics, and you held your budget open house as well. And the work sessions in June, after you go through all of the departments, you go through all of that information that's presented to you, this is an opportunity for you all as council members to go through the budget, discuss any changes that you would like to see with the final budget that would be proposed for adoption on the 16th. So you had some of those deliberations already today. You will go back into the work session again after these meetings and continue those deliberations. And then you'll have an opportunity, as I mentioned, next week and the week after that as well. So as far as actions, so you took your first action a couple of weeks ago, and that was to set the public hearing on this tentative budget. And so tonight you've set the public hearing on a number of items for the 16th, which is the day that you would consider the final budget. And so with this item here, this is the consideration of the tentative budget, and you have the option of approving that and then setting the hearing on the final budget. So that's what's in front of you today. And then, of course, on the 16th, there are a number of public hearings that you hold as part of the budget. So the first two, the enterprise fund transfers and the municipal officers' compensation, those are public hearings that are required by state code. There's no action on those, but that information will be presented. You hold a public hearing, but the information and the budget elements are approved with the final budget. So there's no action on those two items, but you do hold a public hearing and then consider adopting a number of other things after that. That includes the capital improvement plan, the salary schedules, and then that final budget with the Schedule A1 amendments. You also approve the staffing documents and the certified tax rate with that final budget. So when we look at the tentative budget itself, some bigger policy positions that have been taken with this budget. There's no property tax increase proposed, so whatever the county certified tax rate comes back at, that's what is proposed for adoption. There's $2 million of unused wage and benefits funding proposed to be carried into the next year for the same purpose. And then we haven't talked about the budget goals and guidelines yet. We have talked about the financial principles, but we don't anticipate any significant changes with the goals and guidelines. But you'll consider those on the 16th. So as far as the budget numbers go, there's only one change, and that's related to the Schedule A amendments, and that's in the capital improvement fund. So that's the fourth line from the bottom there. You can see the little asterisk there. There is a couple of changes to the Schedule A document. There's one change that changes the budget amount about $87,000, and that change is reflected in those numbers. So those are updated numbers from a couple of weeks ago, so they do reflect that. And those changes are as follows. So there is some RAMP grant revenue that was not included in the initial budget that we need to recognize as revenue. And then there's $335,000 that is being set aside until we can get a community plan amended to make sure that that CIP project is consistent with the community plan, which is a requirement of state code. So once that community plan amendment gets updated, we can move this funding back and they can get started on that project. So you can see the relatively minor change to the tentative budget amount. The initially proposed budget was just over $301 million. And then with that 87,000, it changes to the 301,91,825 number. And then any Schedule A1 changes would change the tentative budget number, not the proposed budget number. So if you adopt the tentative budget, changes to the final budget would be reflected as compared to the tentative budget, not the proposed budget. So it's a bit of a stepping stone. So with the changes in personnel, there are a number of changes that are proposed with the budget. So 10 positions are proposed to be eliminated with 7 added, which would reduce our total FTEs to 698. There are 3 proposed reclassifications, 6 title changes, and 4 transfers between departments. And as far as increases, there is a proposed 2.18% cost of living increase, and that would apply to all employees, up to a 4% merit for non-sworn employees, and this is based on a performance evaluation, so it wouldn't be 4% across the board. It would be dependent upon your performance evaluation and up to the department director. So the average is going to be lower than that, 2 to 3%, but it may go up to 4%. And then the 4% step increase for the sworn fire and police, and that happens on their anniversary date of hire. And then just quickly to touch on the capital projects, there's about $37.8 million proposed for capital projects in the upcoming year. You can see about $4.1 million would come from BDO lease revenue, and the other 33.6 would come from other funding sources, and this includes the utility enterprise funds, any bond funding grants, and other sources of revenue. So with that, this is the slide I forgot to include last time, so I apologize for that. So I'll keep this up for a few minutes if people want to take some notes and answer any questions if you have any. If I can answer any, if not, I'll get some of the smart people in the back to answer the questions for me.
Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate you making this distinction between the Schedules A and the Schedule A1.
Yeah, a little confusing. I think we need to come up with another name for that.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could say this is the friendly one, this is the one that maybe not be.
Right. Exactly.
Something like that. But, all right. Any questions for Glenn?
Yeah, I think a question for Glenn, and you probably can more succinctly address an issue where there's no property tax increase, yet invariably somebody will get their property tax notice and see an increase. So can you explain why that happens?
Sure. There's a couple of reasons that can happen. So first of all, your tax bill is made up of a lot of different taxing entities. And so you may have the school district or some other entity that increases their certified tax rate, and that would impact your overall tax bill. The other thing has to do with valuations. And so I'll get into this in a couple of weeks when we get the certified tax rate. The way the certified tax rate process and the property tax system works is it's a revenue-driven system. So it's not a rate-driven system like a sales tax would be. So the county assessor, we establish a baseline revenue. So this is something that's dictated in state code. We have a set revenue that we're allowed to collect plus any new growth. And so there's a revenue number that we are allowed to collect. And they use that in combination with the overall valuation of all the properties in the city, and then they calculate that rate. So it's kind of a macro view. And so when they do the one calculation for the revenue and the one calculation for overall valuation and come up with that property tax number, that's going to impact every property differently because the valuations within that overall property valuation or total valuation can fluctuate. So we have to get to an end number. The county assessor will adjust property values. That's how we get to that overall valuation number. And then that single property tax rate gets applied to every single property. So you may have a valuation that goes up or that goes down, and that same rate gets applied. And so that can make that fluctuate as well. So hopefully that explained it. It's kind of a confusing process.
I appreciate that because it is a confusing process, but I think it's important to recognize that, and in some cases, property taxes may decrease even though we're saying there's no property tax increase.
Correct.
The amount paid on your bill, you could see that fluctuate based on those valuations. So.
Yeah, and that's to the point of the set amount of revenue. So if we go through a truth and taxation process, what we're doing is saying we want additional revenue. So we figure out how much additional revenue we would want, and then we calculate the rate based off that. So like I said, it's kind of backwards from a rate-based system where if we want additional revenue for sales tax, for example, you would increase that rate, and then you would get the revenue from that. The property tax is a little bit backwards, so we set the amount of revenue we would want, and then the rate gets adjusted from that.
Any other questions for Glenn?
Glenn, I just have a question of curiosity. That certified tax rate, seems like we always wait for that from the county. Does that also put an imposition on other cities and other taxing entities? Yeah,
so we all get it at the same time. And so if if another taxing entity, maybe this is not answering your question, so let me know if it doesn't. If another taxing entity, or if we wanted to go through truth and taxation process, we would have to wait to get that number and then calculate things based on that afterwards. And so, so we get it at the same time as everybody else does. And if you're going through the truth and taxation process, that's why you get an extra, couple of months to go through that process, because you don't get those numbers and you have to calculate those numbers after that.
And from your experience, because this is a big deal for us, because you projected all these without knowing what that certified tax rate is.
Right.
What's the possibility of the county being able to have that rate for us prior to us starting to set the budget?
So the advantage is because it's based on revenue, not on the rate. We tend to know how much, or at least we can estimate a lot closer in our property tax revenue. And then that number might get adjusted a little bit, and there is usually some contingency built into the budget to adjust for that. And so sometimes we do see mid-year amendments to adjust for that. But because it is a revenue-driven system, we tend to know, what our last year's revenue is, which is what we're entitled to based on the way that the state code works, and we can estimate some new growth. And so we calculate the revenue to put in the budget based on that, and then that rate comes after.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glenn, if I can try stating this thing a different way, maybe
Sure.
maybe it's the way that my mind works, but and I had a citizen recently kind of really hit on me because they felt like there was inflation built into the tax rate because their house goes up in value and their property taxes seem to always go up.
Yeah.
And they assumed that we always got a little inflationary rate built into the tax rate. I think it's important that people understand that our tax rate adjusts to get us the same number of dollars we got the year before, plus the new growth that happened.
New growth,
And everybody understands that, dollars this year don't buy as much as the dollars did last year.
Yeah.
So there is no inflationary rate built in, and that's why truth and taxation has to happen once in a while, because the dollars don't buy as much as they used to. And we as a city and a municipality try to make sure we stretch our resources as much as possible, but sometimes those tax rates have to happen, and that's why, because those inflated dollars just don't buy as much.
Yeah, and it really depends on the city. If you have a high growth city, you're going to get that new growth all the time, so that number continues to climb with that new growth. But if you don't have as much growth, that number is going to stay pretty flat.
Right. Thanks for letting me rant on that a little bit.
Yep.
It's just a very complicated issue. And then there's the ratio between commercial and residential. And then there's the 55% value versus the 100% value. And it's just really a complicated issue.
Yeah.
So,
Chair, I think it's important that we acknowledge the work that has gone into preparing this budget, and even taking into the unknown variables of not knowing what the certified tax rate is. And so my kudos to those that have done that heavy lifting. That's pretty impressive for me to see that. So thanks.
And I'll leave it to the folks who did all that to correct all the things that I said wrong, if I said anything wrong. So I apologize.
okay. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. This is also a public hearing. If you have comments about the 2026-2027 tentative budget, now would be the time to come forward and have your 3 minutes. Please give us your name and city, please.
Laura Lewis, just another quick question. The non-sworn employees are up to 4% pay increase, but the sworn fire and police are a flat 4% raise. It's not performance-based like the other employees, and why is that?
Thanks, Laura. Anyone else have questions? Okay.
Chair, I don't see any hands online either, so I would make a motion to close. Oh, there's a hand. There it goes.
Linda.
Okay, we have Linda. Can you hear us?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I am not saying that I'm not in favor of the budget. I just want to remind everybody that not everybody that you're serving or that you're representing are getting raises. So when you give just automatic money away for no merit based or anything, such as that, you're really taking from the citizens that are just barely able to make it and put food on the table and house themselves. So I would really like you guys to, when you're putting things together, to remember what we've all been taught. I'm sure that you were taught when you were young. Don't spend your money before you make it. Don't do things that is going to enslave ourselves and our children and our grandchildren to just barely be able to make it. I'm not saying that I don't support the fire or the police, but I'm just saying in the last year, I sent you all questions that I had. I haven't received answers on any of them. However, I haven't been able to listen to the work session yet. We have things to keep in mind when we're doing that. When we're putting together plans in place and how things are going to grow or not grow, please just keep in mind those questions that I've asked, and please try to make sure they get answered. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, got another hand coming up.
Hello,
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council. My name is Phil Okarma. I'm with the Parks Department with Ogden City for 14 years. I'm retired now. And I'm here to make my views known on the Taylor Canyon Corridor project.
That would be later.
Later?
Later, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, we will have some public comment, but it won't
Okay.
happen until a little later.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you.
All right, with that, I would make a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes. So, who would like to address there we go. Lisa's coming up. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, good comment. I just want to assure the council there is a performance element to the public safety. The difference is the regular employees have a range. Public safety is all or nothing. They have a benchmark they have to meet. There's physical fitness. There's several elements to it, and unless they meet that at their annual review, they either qualify for the increase or they do not. And that helps us have a grade for public safety, which is very common in the public safety area.
I guess I'm going to make a follow up. So of the entire employee pool in public safety, do they all get it, or they get canned, or how's that work?
I think if they do not get it, they are put on a work improvement plan.
Okay.
And probably have so much time to qualify, but they would need to qualify by their anniversary date.
Okay.
To qualify.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Chair, I could help.
Yes.
And just remember, a number of years ago, we were stuck without the STEP program for public safety.
Yep.
And when we did a market study, public safety, as Lisa mentioned, is a common tool and setup in the public safety world. And it's something that's necessary to be competitive with other agencies to make sure that we keep our staff in place. And it's an issue that, as you know, the county had struggled with recently too. So that's why public safety is different than the non-sworn employees. They're just two different systems for tracking on what's common in the industries. But also, to Linda's comment, I want to, Linda Sanchez, if you can still hear us, I want to go back to my budget presentation and just highlight that I've been very deliberate on proposals, that anything that we propose for our staff tracks with what our common, what our community is experiencing. And the inflationary adjustment for COLA tracks very closely with an inflationary adjustment with Social Security for our fixed income elderly residents especially. I recognize that there are absolutely people in our city that are not seeing any kind of compensation increases, but as we structured the proposal for the entire budget proposal, we made sure that what we were proposing for our staff does not go outside the bounds of what median incomes and what the general experience is for our community as a whole.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just also, just a message to Linda, I don't recall seeing an email, and a good reminder for all of us to check our junk folders, because occasionally there's comments that we receive there as well, but I just reviewed mine, and I don't see one there. So maybe, if we can just chat later on and figure out how we can improve that communication.
Okay, so unless there's more discussion, I'll look for a motion.
Chair, regarding proposed fiscal year 2026, hang on, where am I here?
5B.
Yeah. Regarding proposed ordinance 2026-8, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 26-27, setting a public hearing for June 16th, I move for adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to set a public hearing for June 16th on proposed ordinance 2026-8. We have the motion by Vice Chair Kraft, seconded by Councilmember Lundell.
So, Chair, if
yes.
I can intervene. So the action is to adopt the tentative and set the public hearing. So
Yeah,
you can do
adopt the
both
tentative
things.
and set the public hearing. I misspoke, didn't I?
Is that the motion that was made?
That's the motion that was made, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Second, good? Okay, all right. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lundell.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Hi.
Vice Chair Graff.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes. All right. Next item is the reports from administration, proposed business depot Ogden, lease revenue, defense depot Ogden, Utah DDOU ordinance amendments.
Is Councilmember Washington?
She's not on.
Would you let me when Councilmember Washington gets in? Okay. I think she's still not in, right? Okay. All right. Justin, welcome back.
Thank you, Chair. Council members, it's a pleasure to be with you again to discuss with you the proposal to amend the ordinance related to the conveyance of the DDOU or BDO lease revenues. This is a certain section in our code and how we can use these funds related to what we receive from BDO. So just as a little bit of history on BDO, so the agreement is that 50% of the lease revenue is to be used for capital improvements after funding priorities, which are described in the ordinance. These funds are to help catalyze investment in the downtown and in neighborhoods. It's what it's been used for over the years. And then it can also be used for one-time needs based on proposals from administration and approval from City Council. The current state of where we're at with BDO lease revenue is annually we're actually over 16 million now. Just how it's grown, it's been amazing to see how that's gone. Which all that has done is it's provided more opportunities for the city and what we've been able to do. We've used this to support both capital and redevelopment debt. As well as, and then as far as the way we program this out for ongoing years, we try to be really conservative. We have seen substantial growth over the last decade, but when we project it out, we try to do it conservatively, and we project it out at a 1% increase. So this is the history going back to fiscal year 2013. So what we're projecting for fiscal year 26. So again, you can see the growth. Fiscal year 2013, we were under 4 million, and now we're anticipating to be just over 16 or close to 17 million in BDO lease revenue from the city will receive. This is a chart that represents how the funds have been used over the last 7 years, going back to fiscal year Apologize, my eyes are struggling tonight. But what this represents is this is, instead of showing what the dollar amounts is, this is showing the percentage split of what the funds have been used for. So the green portion each year, that's the amount that we've been using for CIP. So as you can see from year to year, it goes up and goes down in the portion used for projects. The yellow portion, as you can see, the last few years has grown. That's the debt service and the Union Station land purchase that we are using BDO funds for. So you can see those are a little bit bigger the last few years as we've been using a lot of these funds for some of the new debt services related to Marshall White and the Wonder Block. Some of the other smaller ones, the orange represents the amount of money that's gone into quality neighborhoods over the year. It's been $1 million each year, but the last fiscal year we didn't do any because the prior year we had actually brought forward an amount, so it was actually $2 million. That's why there's not anything in the prior year. Fiscal year 27, you can see what the proposal that's in the fiscal year 27 budget and how that splits. That's that far right one. And then the blue amounts, the dark blue, is related to amounts that have been transferred to the RDA for RDA support for various projects. So the change in the ordinance, there's a couple of different things besides the conveyance and how the revenues can be used. We also, in working with legal, we are adding some intent language that allows the use of the funds for previously approved financial commitments. This also renews the funding for the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative for an additional 5 years that would begin in fiscal year 27. We also remove the specific language around the CBD mall debt service that had been transferred out of BDO. This debt service was paid off. Or will be paid off. And then we also have additional technical amendments. This is the part that I meant when I was speaking of legal. There's been some additional technical amendments to bring the ordinance into compliance with legal department style guide. So with that, as far as the proceeds, the first part of that of the proceeds section describes the use of for debt service. In the prior version of the ordinance, it listed specific debt services and the amount not to exceed, and that included the CBD Mall. It included the Marshall White Center. And so currently the debt services that we would propose that could be used, and again, the ordinance may not specifically call these out, but each year as we bring you a budget, we will talk about what those uses are. And so you will have an opportunity as a council to accept what those proposed uses are each year annually. This just removes the specific language of those debts so that as one comes off or another, if there's another one that in working with administration and council, another one comes on, we're able to not have to amend this every time. And so this was at the direction when working together with council staff, we've adjusted the language to be this way. But the thing I wanted to point out here is this is an example where before the Marshall White one would have said up to $2 million annually. The annual payment next year would include is about $1.4 million. But of that, we are actually only using $971,000 from BDO. And the reason that we're able to do that is because with the construction bonds that we had for the Marshall White Center, we had earned some interest. That interest can only be used for the project or debt service. And so we're actually using $500,000 from that for the debt service. And then the remaining portion would come from BDO. The same thing with the Continental RDA, which is Wonder Block. So this is the development portion of the project. The amount of debt service that would be needed from BDO would be offset by the number of tax increment that's received in that area. And there has been a little bit generated so far. And so we're proposing to use some of that next year. And so that again reduces the need of BDO lease revenue we don't need the full amount from BDO lease revenue for that debt service next year. And then in the MBA debt services, which is where the parking towers is, again, that one, it would have been up to $4 million annually, but for next year, about $785,000 of that is being covered with interest that we earned on those bonds. So again, this is an example of how each year we will look at what other sources we may have available to reduce down the burden on BDO to support those debt services. The language again also includes renewing the quality neighborhoods at $1 million a year, which I know there's another item. The next item we'll talk more about that. And then the other items, just as a reminder, these are not changing. These are already in the ordinance, but it includes the $780,000 annually that's being paid to Union Pacific for the land purchase for the land under Union Station. This goes through fiscal year 2030. The continued funding for public art projects and maintenance of just over $100,000 a year. The ordinance does talk about funding art grants through BDO lease revenue, but we have been able to budget through the general fund the last few years for this. But the ordinance does allow us, if we need to use BDO lease revenue for that, we can. But the last few years we've been able to bounce through the general fund to cover those arts grants. Additionally, funding for any emergency or critical repairs. Typically, a minimum of $100,000. The last few years, the proposed budget has included $150,000. This has been a big support to help when there's been critical needs that have come up. Any of those uses for those funds would have to still come back to council to appropriate the use of those funds. And then the next one is once we take those items, then we say how much is left of BDO lease revenue to use. At least half of that has to be used towards capital projects. And then of those funds, we also put a portion of that towards a community plan project when we do our proposal for our CIPs. We can also use this to retire any city debt early, and then any other projects or programs as appropriate, as proposed through administration and then again approved by council. So this is a chart of the next 15 years, just as a projection, showing what we anticipate growing. Again, it's small, but just to note, the annual growth is about 1% per year. This reflects what those annual commitments potentially could be for the Marshall White debt, the RDA debt for the Wonder Block, the parking tower debt. The one thing I will note on the RDA one there, that does reduce down by what we anticipate in tax increment that we'll be getting. But the MBA one at this point doesn't include any anticipated revenues. It's what the full debt service would be if we don't have any parking revenues, enough parking revenues above and beyond what's needed for operations. Anything above and beyond will be used to offset this debt service. It includes the quality neighborhoods, the Union Station land purchase, the public arts as talked about. And so this shows you over the next 15 years what that potential amount would grow to, that would be available for other uses for projects, any other things the city has proposed. So the request for you is to consider adopting this ordinance, which would amend the municipal code related to the conveyance of the DDOU property, BDO lease revenue. Any questions on this item for me?
Questions for Justin?
Yes, Justin. On the slide that talked about proceeds section and uses, I think it was the second slide. Yeah. It reads capital improvement projects, and then in parentheses, capital plan capital improvements up to 10% or $150,000. Can you explain what that is?
So that's any community plan project. So each community has different projects that are within those community plans. So this is saying that at least $150,000 or up to 10% needs to go towards some sort of community plan project.
Okay. So if planning wants to go into a neighborhood and work to reestablish or refine a neighborhood plan, is that what we're talking about?
So as they have those different neighborhood plans, they usually have things listed. So we actually, if you look in our CIP book, we do include a list of different things that are pulled from different area plans of projects within those areas. And so those are the things that we would look at. How can we fund those? And we would identify a lot of those are a lot more than $150,000. So, for example, we did, I can't remember where it was, but it was a sidewalk. I want to say Hillcrest, but that doesn't sound right. Last year, and we actually put $150,000 over a couple years so that we had enough funds to do that project. But it was described in that area plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We've got one of those that we've been talking about.
The stoplight.
The 1100 North Monroe. Yeah. That was developed when the community plan was being worked on and adopted by the council, but worked on by the community. So they just get built in, and they're in every community plan. And this one we just didn't give it enough latitude.
Okay.
So that's kind of how that's working.
Justin, I have another question too. If I
yes,
may,
go ahead,
Chair. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So on this same page, on the second to last bullet point, it says early retirement of city debt. And from previous conversations, it seems to me that there is not an option for us to pay off some of the bond debts early, that we are limited to the payments as they're structured. Is that true? That just help me understand that. Once again, I know it's a repetitive question, right, but I still wrapping my hands around.
That's a great question. So there are certain with each bond, there are certain debt covenants around those, and some of them don't allow for early payoff. It just depends on the bonding and the way they're written, whether or not there is the ability to early retire. An example would be, we had refunded a couple of bonds in the CBD area related to the Solomon Center in 2016. Those bonds were set to expire to be paid off fully during fiscal year 27. But in working through what we were allowed to do, we put in extra funding in the budget in fiscal year 26, and we were able to pay those off and saved about $100,000 in interest. And so when those opportunities do arise, we would propose that through the budget process.
And again, just to follow up on that, and this is something you've already told us once, but it seems to me that the Wonder Block bond does not have that early option payoff. Is that correct? Because that's the big bond where
10 years.
I think 10 years, yeah.
Before you can start making those payments. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Does that help answer those?
Yeah, that helps me understand that a little better.
Any other questions for Justin?
Yeah, I think just if we can go to the slide with the schedule, the pro forma basically going out. So essentially the balance line on the end is the CIP. That's what's left over for CIP projects, right?
That's so based on how the ordinance is written, at least half of that would have to be used for capital.
And so, I mean, this is a preference item where the council could look at this and say, you know what? If we really look back on the history of this, and I don't know if we can ever put together a list of all the great things that have happened in the city because of the BDO lease revenue, but it'd be a phenomenal list to look at to see what an amazing thing this is and how it's really benefited Ogden. But if we were to take a stronger posture towards debt and say we want to proportion more of that money towards that, the trade-off is that we're going to have less for those projects. Or on the other hand, if we want to say let's take the normal approach with our debt, then we have more money for those ongoing projects. I mean, that's a fair assessment. We can look at that year by year, and with your 1% growth rate, it's very likely that, or it's at least possibility that those revenues will be higher than what we're projecting, and so that extra revenue could be proportioned depending on what the council's position was.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? I kind of do it. The one with all the graph colors. What that page was?
This one.
That one, yeah. That is. It's kind of surprising when you look at it that way. Now, as a council member who has been involved in one way or another as a citizen, even from when we got BDO as BDO from the government, the federal government, that seems to have been I kind of call it the golden goose. It's really helped Ogden a ton, like Councilmember Ritchie says, and it's really benefited us because we don't encumber it with ongoing, debt or ongoing things too much. We try to avoid that, and I've always kind of struggled with what is the balance of what, ongoing money versus one-time expenditures, and I don't know if you have an opinion about that or the way it's been used. Hopefully that it informs us how that has been a good thing. Have you got an opinion about that?
Well, my first thought is I think as a city, when working for the city and seeing these funds, it's actually a great thing for the city. When you look at, this isn't something that every city has. There's not these opportunities. And so I think the foresight many, many years ago, they probably didn't see it growing to where it's grown today as you look at, this chart here and what it's been able to grow to and the amount of funds available. And so, yes, even though we've made the intention of it being, not committed to ongoing consistently, except for, at times when we've used it for debt service, it truly has been an opportunity to help the city, because if we didn't have this, that's also going to eat into, general fund dollars to be able to do capital projects, which then also is a burden on taxpayers. And so just having this and watching it continue to grow and be available to be able to use for some of these sources like the debt service for the Marshall White Center, we didn't have to do anything that's a burden on citizens because we were able to build this really nice center and use this as our source to repay that, which is a capital investment still. Even though it's debt service, it still is a capital investment for the city. And to that extent, same with the parking towers. This was an investment for the city. It is a structure. It's structures for the city. So I think these are good things. But yeah, that continued focus of, each year planning what the use of those funds are, I think is perfectly acceptable. And as it continues to grow, it continues to allow more funding for, projects and other things as they come up. Also opportunities, as looking at this with the portions in prior years that have been used for redevelopment support as well. So it's also used for those kind of opportunities. So it's a great, as you mentioned, the Golden Goose, it's really a great thing that the Ogden City has available to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Justin, can I add to the comment too? Just from a policy standpoint, when we look at revenues and we compare ongoing versus one time, we want to make sure obviously that we've got stable revenue sources going to ongoing needs. I proposed it 2 years ago to the council. You guys had a disagreement. That's fine. I still think it's important that we look at BDO lease revenue as a stable source of funds and consider using it for ongoing uses if we can find other offsets for one-times. So my point being, we as administration are competing for grants at an unprecedented rate right now. Mm-hmm. That's very deliberate directive that I've given to the staff, and the staff have been hitting home runs like never before. And I think that there's still more opportunities out there to keep doing that. And maybe I'm flippant when I say OPM or other people's money, but I'm still adamant that there's other people's money out there that's coming from other cities and other states, and it's going to go somewhere. And I think it's our duty to compete for those funds and bring them home and deliver for results here. And if we can scale that approach, I still think that we should revisit the conversation of ongoing funds coming out of BDO lease revenue as an offset. It doesn't mean that we're encumbering everything, but I do think that we should be willing to encumber some if there's a good articulatable argument to be made for other one-time opportunities to offset it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And I can buy that argument in context of what's being proposed. You look at quality neighborhoods. It's arguably not ongoing because it does have an end, but it is pretty ongoing. We're looking at doing it the third 5-year go around for that, and the good it has done, it's worthwhile. Especially where we're using it citywide for neighborhood revitalization. Mayor, I don't completely disagree. We probably do have a little disagreement, but based on the context of the project or the proposal, I will certainly be happy to look at those things. But I am pretty protective of the idea that BDO lease revenue needs to be for one-time projects, unless there's a pretty good reason not to.
And my point too is, I appreciate that you're open to considering it, because what I don't think we should do is just take the easy way out. If there is ways for us to hustle and find more in different ways, I think it's incumbent on us that we challenge our paradigm of how we've used it in the past, because it's all about driving efficiencies and delivering results and delivering the impact. So I just want to make sure I'm always pushing the paradigm and making sure that we're not stuck in a paradigm just because of the past.
I'm going to use an example. It's hopefully it's not inappropriate, but the guy that dropped a quarter in the toilet, and it wasn't worth reaching into the toilet for a quarter, so he threw the rest of his change in there so that he would get in there and get it. I think that's kind of what you're talking about. You want to make sure that that does get you more money back. That you magnify the money, or you compound the money. Is that what you're saying?
Not at all. Actually,
Careful there.
yeah. So inappropriate, no. Gross, yes.
Anyway,
I see what you're saying though. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think is the term that Councilmember Lundell used.
You didn't like the toilet example?
Oh, really?
Okay. All right. That's good enough.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you.
But to me, it's just, I don't want to go back to the tax well and put it back on the backs of our people if there's other people's money that can come into our community.
And I'm with you there.
I would also just say, the counter argument to that is using stable funds for these reoccurring things. If we were to dip into that and use it for the sources you're saying, I appreciate that you're going after the grant funds. We should always be doing that, but those fluctuate up and down, and so I think, I'm pretty protective of this fund as well, and its use for CIP funds, and so yeah, I think we've got some points there too. So,
all right, let's get back out of the weeds here, Lori, huh? So, any other questions for Justin or anything you want to address? Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
We have elected to receive public input on this item also. This is still not public comment, but it is comment about the BDO lease revenue ordinance. Anyone like to address the council on that?
Laura Lewis, Ogden City resident. I'm still trying to get the Wonder Block thing clear. We have the Continental RDA Wonder Block, which has an annual payment of $4,200,000. And then we have the MBA debt on the parking towers, which is $4 million, up to those numbers. Is that correct? Am I understanding that?
Okay, thank you, Laura.
That's embarrassing.
Thank you for trying not to use the BDO as a slush fund. That is it's important to save that money for.
We need your name, Thor.
Oh, right. My apologies. Thor Dorosh, Ogden resident. It's important to not use the BDO as a slush fund, one-time expenses, and expenses which are investments in the community, which then bring back revenue through people moving to Ogden or spending time in Ogden and going to local businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And thank you for asking about being able to repay those bonds earlier, because it's important to be able to make sure we handle that debt now so it doesn't burden us later. Thank you.
Thanks, Thor. Anybody else? We have a hand online. Linda?
Hi, Linda Sanchez. Mayor, I appreciate your comment. I do want to just say I do think it's important for us to reach out and try to get some grants. It just kind of concerns me that we sometimes approve these projects before we're for sure about grant money. And so with that, I would just say we have elected you guys to represent us. So when you're being tasked to make a decision, please, yourselves might be okay, but if that grant money doesn't come through, what is it going to be for the least of our brothers or sisters? What is that impact going to be on them? And I'm not opposed of other people coming in and spending money, but we have to be good stewards. And I do like that you guys are being good stewards and not using that account as a slush fund, because we may at some point need somewhere to get some money from in emergency. So thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Anybody else? All right, let's deliberate.
Sure.
Oh, it can't. Okay. All right. Teresa's iPhone. Sorry, I almost missed you, Teresa.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Awesome, thank you. This is Teresa Bramwell. I just wanted to say a couple of things about this BDO lease revenue. I read the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative a few years ago. I will admit it's been a few years since I read the whole thing, and I don't know if it's been changed recently, but that was originally set up, that $1 million a year, for the East Central neighborhood specifically. And I know that the Rite Aid block has been vacant and demolished for about 10 years with no movement as far as creating the commercial that was previously there. I believe that there was supposed to be a grocery store and some housing for sale that was built in that block. And the only thing that ever has been built was the low-income apartments on the corner of Quincy that specifically had state and federal funding, I believe. And so I appreciate that, you know, we've been able to go after this one-time grant money or funding or low-income funding or homeless funding or whatever it was that built those low-income apartments on Quincy. But what I've noticed is that all the rest of the development is just completely stagnant because everybody's waiting for Ogden City to make some decisions about what's happening. I don't know who makes those decisions or how we can light a fire under that, but my understanding that about the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative, that $1 million a year, that was specifically designated for the East Central neighborhood, and we need it. So I would like to hear how it's going to be spent on the East Central neighborhood in 2027. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, I think that pretty well covers all the comments on this. So we'd like to get some of these questions answered if possible. Where'd Justin go? He's hiding. All right. So can you explain the Wonder Block and the MBA debt, how they all kind of...
Yeah, so the RDA and the MBA are two separate entities, and the debt service in those are two separate debts, right? So there's the debt service related to the parking structures, which was approximately $60 million, and then there was another $60 million in debt related to the development. So this isn't for the two parking towers, but it's for the in conjunction with the development, as that's what we have the joint venture with. And so there are two different debt services, and so those up to amounts is for the two separate debt services that we have. The debt services for each would be reduced down each year based on how much for the MBA, as we have parking revenues. Any parking revenues that we can use to offset the debt service will reduce down the amount needed from BDO for that side. And then in the RDA side, any tax increment that's received will reduce down the debt service in the RDA for the development side.
Okay, then Linda had a question about, or Teresa had a question about the decisions that Ogden has to make at the
Rite Aid.
Rite Aid. Yeah.
I'd have to defer that to probably economic development.
Yeah.
Or
Jeremy or Jared, could you help
I'm
with
not remembering any decision that we still have to make over there, but. Welcome.
Thank you. So I can talk about Capitol Square a little bit and what's going on there. So we do have ongoing meetings that we are discussing with a developer that was engaged over 8 years ago and had made some different commitments and some they've bought adjoining properties around that. They have given us a proposal right now that we're reviewing. There was a proposal in the past that was quite large. They were asking for a massive amount of TIF to come off of that project. We've been working trying to revise that and get it to a scale that actually can be built, and what does that look like. And so I think we're getting closer to getting to a presentation that we can bring to you about the ongoing discussions about what's happening there. So we do understand that has been sitting there for a long time, and we are trying to work through some of those hurdles and move it along.
Okay, thank you.
To be more candid and blunt, because staff doesn't like to be audibly, the developer was selected during the prior administration. 8 years have passed without action. They asked for a lot of TIF, some of which I'm not even sure existed. We are vetting the numbers and scrutinizing the numbers. That's why it's taking time. And we are making sure that the public wins on the outcome of the project, not just the developer. And we're also taking care of some environmental remediation issues on site that have long been standing there from past uses, specifically from the laundromat, I believe, that have mixed with groundwater on site, which we knew about and are continuing to monitor and remediate actively.
All right, thank you. Okay.
For the quality neighborhoods, you can just stay tuned.
Oh, yeah, quality neighborhood is.
It's coming up next.
Yeah, it's, just to kind of put a little finer point on that, that original quality neighborhood proposal was for 5 years of the $1 million, and it did go to East Central. I think the second tranche of that money was also originally earmarked for that. Somewhere along the way, it got. We found that there was needs elsewhere that needed to have some of that money. I don't remember what year that happened. Do you? Anybody know?
I bet Jeremy can tell us when he comes up in a bit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to.
There was just, if I can just also address, there was a question about, rainy day and, what if we might need, and talking about BDO lease revenues. And, you look at the fund balance that we keep in reserve in the budget is that's the rainy day fund. And hasn't always been as good as it is. I think 10, maybe 15 years ago, it was quite a bit of a different story. And so the city's done a great job managing their budget to set aside funds so that we are protected against those types of emergencies and other things. And then the other thing, and I may be wrong on this, and so correct me, but the budget or budgeting grant money before we get that, we don't. Which is an example of we just did a budget amendment to recognize grant funding that came in. So throughout the year, we will see budget amendments, and oftentimes it is related to those things. So yeah, we hope to get it. We kind of look forward to it, and we've got a grant writing position to make those things happen. But not until the money is actually granted and approved do we actually introduce it into our budget. So that's another point I just wanted to clarify.
All right, thank you. All right, we need any more discussion about this, or let's go ahead and have a motion then.
Chair, I'd make a motion here then that we adopt the proposed ordinance 2026-12.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie, second by Vice Chair Kraft, to adopt ordinance 2026-12. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Lindell.
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes. Okay, next item is the proposed Quality Neighborhood Initiative renewal. You were just waiting to get up here, weren't you, Jeremy? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Heyer, council members. It's a privilege to be here again, talk to you about the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. This is going to be very familiar to last week's presentation, but happy to go through it again and answer any additional questions. Just to give you a little background on what the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative is, this started actually about 10 years ago. So in 2016, City Council and administration, along with the RDA, did a joint resolution where it adopted this initiative, which was basically a framework for how to coordinate our public investments, our public funds, everything from our HUD federal funds to actual city funds that, as we just discussed in the last agenda item. So what this did was give some guidance of how we could move forward with revitalization efforts. And specifically in the beginning, it was for that East Central neighborhood. For the first 5 years, every dollar that we invested was in going to stabilize that neighborhood. The subsequent 5 years, it was modified slightly. And so it still gave the East Central neighborhood a priority target, but did give the provision to expand into other neighborhoods where it was appropriate. We'll be talking today about some changes that we're proposing for this next 5 years. But just wanted to touch on the original mission, which is still relevant, of the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative, which is to stabilize and revitalize Ogden's neighborhoods as neighborhoods of choice by establishing a pattern of public investment that catalyzes desirable and appropriate community development. You'll recognize if you go through our East Central neighborhood where this initiative has been implemented, and these are some of the standouts. We had a huge infill development program that did a lot of work over the past 10 years. The notable projects are the Ogden bungalows, Stonehill Homes, and the most recent one is our Sycamore Cove development that is located on 2300 Quincy. A smaller development, but we coincided with some of our other programs, which is our home preservation, where we renovate and sell homes. And these are historic homes that were done on that same block. This is the 2300 block of Quincy again. So these are great before and afters of some of the homes that this program is, or that benefited from this program. Another part of the program is that we do public improvement projects. And again, this is that same street. We were able to go in and replace the sidewalks, add new sewer line, new pavement, and really just turn around the whole street from the homes to the public infrastructure was there. The photos to the right is our most recent project, and this was done, the new sidewalks, if you've been around Lester Park recently, was done by utilizing, these are actually federal funds that were used for that project, but still under that umbrella of the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. These are the historical accomplishments, and when I say quality neighborhoods, we talk about 10 years, but actually the revitalization efforts in Ogden, specifically the central neighborhood, has been happening long before that. This Quality Neighborhoods Initiative just gave it a more organized structure of how to basically target those funds from multiple sources. And so these are some of the accomplishments, but you can see that the overall investment in our neighborhoods has just been huge with these programs. So the majority of these are through our federal funds, but there are some that are not. And so as we talked about the BDO lease revenues that that comes to this program every year. In the past, that's been used, the majority of it for purchasing property for some of our infill developments, and development of that where we're looking for opportunities to really improve neighborhoods. So that's what we've done in the past. So as we're looking to the future, one of the things that we discussed last week is how much the world has changed in the last 5 years. It's been anyone that's looked at buying a home or done a renovation on a home can attest to what we're seeing, or anyone that's watching the news or cares at all about housing, right? So I just put together a couple interesting graphs that kind of show what has happened in a couple key markets. The housing market for the past 10 years, the median home price in 2016 was just under $200,000. There was a rapid increase over until 2022, where that just kind of peaked out just over $400,000. So just a huge price jump. You basically doubled in price over a short span of time. And then over the past, since 2022, it's just kind of been hovering around that $400,000 mark. And that, just so, like I said, last time, so you're not feeling picked on, this is where we compare with some of the surrounding cities around us. Ogden still, even though it's very expensive, still holds the most affordable sales price in the region, but it just shows how expensive it's become. And everyone talks about this. When we talk about housing, we know how expensive and painful it is to buy a home. One of the things that's talked about a little less is the construction costs and the correlation with that. So in 2016, we would plan on spending about $100 a square foot for construction. And just in the similar year stretch, you can see where that costs have more than doubled as well. So why I bring this up is because, as I mentioned, a lot of our funding is through federal funds. The HUD gives us a couple grants that the majority of our programs run through. And historically, we've been able to buy and renovate homes and sell them and collect the proceeds and recycle that money and do that multiple times. We're also able to build a significant amount of homes. We've seen that in recent years, our ability to do that, because the grant number has not changed. Our buying power is also eroding because of the construction cost increase. Our numbers have reduced significantly. And so as we forecast into the future, we're asking ourselves, how is this sustainable? And is this really the best use of these funds that we have? Are there other things that we can do to help bring about some of the same awesome results that we've seen with some of our projects and do it in a meaningful way that's still benefiting our neighborhoods. And so we've done a lot of analysis and really reached out to see what are those things that if it's not done through the city directly buying property and buying homes, what can we do to still make just as much of an impactful difference in our neighborhoods? So we've come up with a pretty significant shift in our paradigm as to what we'll be doing moving forward. And this includes both federal funds as well as city funds, but it's still going to revitalization of neighborhoods. One of the big changes you'll see is community development is actually going through a name change. Instead of community development, that name is shifting to neighborhood development. And so a big part of that is just putting the added emphasis on we're really dialing into the neighborhoods to see what is needed. And so our new mission statement has been enhanced. It reads, to preserve, strengthen, and enhance Ogden's neighborhoods as neighborhoods of choice by directing public investment in citywide needs-based manner that catalyzes private investment, stabilizing neighborhood housing, infrastructure, and community assets to support a broad range of income levels and household types. The key thing to this, when we look at it, we'll see is that we're updating a few things, that we're no longer looking at one specific neighborhood and targeting that, but really trying to see what is needed from the city as a whole. And I'll go through some of these just significant updates and then tell you how our guiding principles have changed as well. But we understand that when we're improving neighborhoods, it's not just about houses. It's not about buying and renovating homes, although that's an awesome thing to do. If it's something we can't do as in the quantity that's really making that impact, what are some other things? And a lot of that is coordinating with our other departments to understand, are there other things that neighborhoods are suffering from that can be benefited from neighborhood improvements? And so a big part of it is instead of us just operating in a silo in our division, what are we doing to coordinate with other divisions and departments to make sure we're synergizing in a way that brings apart the maximum amount of benefit to our neighborhoods? And so that brings into the second point is instead of our major tools being the direct acquisition of land and homes, we would be shifting that to looking more at what exactly are the needs of that neighborhood. And that can include everything from public improvements, such as parks, infrastructure, anything that the city or anything that the neighborhood is needing that will really be a benefit is an option. So I'll go through the core characteristics and guiding principles here next. And these are just what we look at when we talk about what makes a neighborhood a quality neighborhood or a healthy or a stable neighborhood. These are the things that we look at. Is there a land use variety? Are there transportation options available? Is there a good design and identity of each neighborhood? Is there housing choice and accessibility, community connection, safety and stability, and economic sustainability? And the bottom line is we look at what are the things that make people feel like that's a place they want to live or a neighborhood of choice. And this is I think, a good summary of those characteristics. The guiding principles is really the thing that we look at as we move forward. We have a map up here on the side, which is, if you've seen that, you recognize it's the community plan map. We're using this just as a base to identify neighborhoods in the city. It's not strictly border defined, but gives us an idea of the neighborhoods that are there, and we're analyzing each neighborhood to determine its needs. And so rather than concentrating solely on one neighborhood, while the East Central has received a lot of investment in the past and will continue to receive that. It has a lot of assets that need to be improved. There are other neighborhoods that also need attention. And so we'll be analyzing each neighborhood going forward to see what are the needs and how best those can be met. And that doesn't necessarily mean the city is going to be the one stepping up to meet every need there. There's a lot of things out there that are better fitted from some of our community partners, and they're better suited to address those needs. And so the strategy is being able to partner with them in a way that we can assign the best appropriate resource out there to the need that's present. So that's the overlying the goal of having that citywide needs-based approach. We'd also be looking to strengthen our public-private partnerships. Instead of the city being the one to always be the developer on some of these infill things, Are there other developers out there that are willing to step and do the same kind of projects and not do it at the expense of the city? And as we talked about last week, we have a great example of the property that was purchased on North Jackson. And that has went out to an RFP for a developer to purchase and do the development that the city was planning on doing. And that will all be on their expense and purchasing land from the city. So we look at that as a great example of a public-private partnership. There's a lot of alliteration there. Okay. The next one is the housing option across income levels. As we look at each neighborhood, we want to make sure we're concentrating, seeing if there is housing that's available, no matter where you are in your life, that you have an option to live in that neighborhood if you choose to. Housing preservation is probably the biggest one I see, just based on who we are in Ogden as our housing stock. We know we have some of the oldest homes in the state, as far as of any other major city. I think we're just second to Salt Lake as far as age, and that goes with our infrastructure as well, which is the next one. We have old homes, we have old infrastructure, but they're a great asset. When we look at our homes, our average square foot of homes is a lot smaller than almost every city in the state as well. And so if you hear the narrative being portrayed by the state and other communities, the goal for all these cities, they're trying to get them to build smaller homes on smaller lots. And the reality is Ogden has done this, and we did it a long, long time ago. Our challenge is that our homes are older and need to be preserved. As you saw on the graph, we have the most affordable single-family homes in the state. The problem is we need to keep protecting them so they're still available for the next generation. And so a big part of our guiding principle will be figuring out ways to help our citizens preserve their homes. And we have programs in place to do that, but enhancing them in a way where they can be more accessible will be a big part of our mission going forward. I mentioned infrastructure and public assets. This is a key one when we look at neighborhoods' health. When we go through neighborhoods and determine, is this a place that people want to be? A lot of that will revolve around just the simple infrastructure that's there. You look at sidewalks and parks and conditions, and is this an environment where it is a neighborhood of choice? We have a lot of assets that need investment. And so our focus will shift largely from the acquisition of properties to investing in our existing public assets. And then lastly, the guiding principle is just the regional collaboration. As everyone knows, Ogden City is an old city. We have very little land left. When we have to be very precise and specific about what we do with that land and make sure we're getting the highest and best use out of it, because once we build it, it's there. It's there for a long time, as we know. Our neighbors around don't have the same challenge we do, and so when we look at the needs of the entire county and region, there will be a need for partnerships with our surrounding cities to address some of those needs. And that comes from everything from affordable to subsidized housing and everything in between. What are we doing? And so we're not just operating our own, but making sure we're forming partnerships where everybody understands the needs of our community. And just how this will be implemented, I'll just touch on quickly. We're currently having regular meetings with a large group of departments within the city, as well as some of our stakeholders and nonprofit organizations, to determine how to work together on this. So what we've done is use this map, as I mentioned, as a starting point. And we're looking at each neighborhood and coming up with an area approach for each one, meeting with the community members as well as all the stakeholders that are involved to determine what truly the needs are, and then we're doing that analysis to decide where they are and what are the things that need to happen. We develop an action plan to move forward with it, and then we evaluate as we go. The exciting part is that we have already made a shift, and when we look at our federal funds, to teeing up some of those funds towards public improvements, if you may have noticed from our last annual action plan, and we're trying to identify projects now that we can start implementing quickly. So, as I mentioned, these are our federally funded projects. We also have, and we talked about this recently with the annual action plan. These are all the programs and projects we do for quality neighborhoods to help with home ownership, and these will continue in various forms. The other source that we use is the BDO lease revenues. This is for the past 5 years where those funds have gone, and that's, as I explained before, the majority of those have gone for purchase of properties for future infill developments and developments. And that will be a fundamental change moving forward for the next 5 years. And then the outcomes, our hope is that we'll have healthier neighborhoods citywide. And that means preserved housing stock, improved neighborhoods, infrastructure, and public assets, increased private investment, preserved affordable homeownership opportunities, and then a stronger regional housing system. And that would be the goals. I'm happy to take any questions or anything that you have since last week. Or
any questions or comments for Jeremy?
I have one, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I really like this shift from property acquisition to needs-based neighborhood improvements. I think it's one that's needed and one that shows our city's ability to adapt with changing markets. I think that's really great. My question is, does money, when we've acquired land in the past and then it gets sold to a developer, we had one situation that's coming up here quite shortly. Does that money funnel back into the Quality Neighborhoods Fund?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So any proceeds from any sale from land would go back to its original source.
And with that, do we have any update on the land that was purchased for the last 2 years, the 23-25 Madison, about what's happening there?
Yeah, right now, I don't know that we have a plan. We did an RFP for that. The results were unsatisfactory, and so we pushed pause on that until we could get a better plan for the properties around it to see what to do with that. But that's right now, there is no contract in place to sell that.
Thanks.
Anyone else? One of your slides, you talked about regional collaboration, and it just so happens I'm the chair of the WACOG Housing Subcommittee, and we're making some great headway. We're identifying a lot of areas where, like our cities around us, our sister cities that are close by, they don't have the tools that we do. You know, they don't have full-time planners, full-time engineers, and people that do that kind of thing. But they still recognize the need for growth, and you know the Wasatch Choice Vision survey that kind of details we're going to be twice as big by 2060. So we have to be proactive in our growth. Ogden can't provide much of that growth anymore. And how would you propose that Ogden help some of these other communities? It's to spend a lot of our taxpayer money on their projects seems a little fruitless. Unless you look at it from the standpoint that if they succeed better, it takes a lot of the pressure off of us. Really, it provides a greater supply of housing, which lowers costs of housing. You know, supply and demand thing. I think there's a lot of benefits for Ogden if our sister cities succeed. And how would you address that issue? And I guess I'm also pleading for more input at that subcommittee. So,
it's a great question. I mean, probably the most challenging one, right? Because we can control what happens in our city. Outside the boundaries, it's a lot more challenging. So we can adopt all the principles we want, but without that collaboration and agreeing, that's not true collaboration. So part of it's just starting the conversation and helping them understand their responsibility, right? As you mentioned, a lot of cities don't have the staff, and it's not something that's ever been part of their city. And so when they look at things about providing, attainable, affordable housing, they're still trying to figure out if they should allow half-acre lots in some cities because they're seen as too small, right? And that's just not a challenge they're going to be used to. And so the benefit that we have is we are very educated when it comes down to that. So where it may not be us providing financial incentive, we can absolutely help mentor them through some of that responsibility and lead the way and help them understand that it's not going to kill their city to help out, right? And so that's a big part of our mission is just basically an educational mentor.
I absolutely agree with that. That does require our mayor, who you all work for, to allow that kind of thing. And I think he's fully aware of the issues and does participate on that subcommittee from time to time. But I really do think we've got to broaden our thinking on this issue outside of our boundaries to help inside the boundaries.
Sure.
Do you want to?
100%. And I think the point that we've made, you and I, with the other cities that has gained some traction is the fact that I think they're recognizing that if they don't build more diversity in their housing stock, that they're not creating an opportunity for their own kids to live in their own cities, and that their cities are going to, their kids and their families are going to leave. And I think that point is finally hitting home. But housing is 100% regional. People don't just price housing or look at comps and all that stuff, and it's a regional issue. But this approach to neighborhoods, I just want to thank Jeremy for your open-mindedness and willingness for me to push your paradigm, because I have, haven't I? And we've had iteration after iteration to get to here. But I really applaud your willingness to think differently and to bring more partners to the table. When you said, he said something here I don't know if you guys recognize the significance of. When he talked about needs-based, citywide needs-based investments, that's citywide is not just spatial, it's also across every department in our city. So this is a big paradigm shift to making sure that neighborhoods of choice are a priority in the way that we plan and invest in the city moving forward. You're going to see that become codified in general plan and everything in the future, but neighborhoods are not just housing. It's the people that are within the bricks and mortar. It's the infrastructure that connects us. It's the open space that we use it's the houses of worship. It's the schools that are in the neighborhoods. It's all of those things. And this approach is creating this framework for every one of our departments to look at the work they do in the context of neighborhoods. So our roads crew isn't just doing road improvement based on a pavement index alone. That's a factor. They're looking at road improvement based on the needs of neighborhoods now. And we're not just fighting crime. We're looking at individual, specific data-driven crime needs based on what these individual neighborhoods need and what the trends are locally, because they differ across the city. We're not just responding to calls for medical and for fire. We're taking proactive measures to make sure that we reduce those kinds of calls. We're being much more proactive than reactive. And we're not just doing it with city funds. We're now aligning partners in nonprofits and in the private sector. So when we talk about the Ogden Way, it means one thing internally for us to drive efficiencies internally, and we do efficiencies not just by saving $1, but we do it by leveraging our hours and putting every department into that same hour to make sure that we leverage impact, right? And then when we talk about the Ogden Way externally with partners, if we're going to stop doing a service, who in our community can do it and do it for free or with grant funds again, so that we're not going after taxpayer money. So back to the original comment, I too am very protective over BDO lease revenue, exceedingly protective. I'm saying that I'm going to protect even more so the money that are in the residents' pockets now, and I'm going to go to that last. So that's what this whole approach is designed to leverage money from other places and other partners beyond our tax dollars, beyond our people's wallets. So thank you for everything you've done to get us to this point, and thank you to the council for considering this.
Any other comments? Thank you, Jeremy, for hearing my little bit of a rant. Sorry.
Anytime. Thank you.
Let's see, where are we at here? Yeah, public input. We've elected to receive input on this item concerning the public or the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative renewal. So if you have a comment concerning this proposal, now would be the time. Okay, looks like we have a hand online. There is no sound or video on Zoom. Let's see if that person's able to talk.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I'm really glad to see a lot of the things Kevin ran are moving forward with the Quality Neighborhood Initiative, and I'm also glad to see some of the things finally coming to fruition that Angel Castillo was shouting from the hilltops 8 years ago. A little late, but we're getting there. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Heath. All right. I think that is our public input.
Make a motion that we close public input?
You don't need to.
No motion on that.
We just, if it's a public hearing, we do. If it's not, we don't need
I'd
that.
like to make a motion that we adopt proposed joint resolution 2026-1, renewing and updating the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lundell, seconded by Councilmember Myers, to adopt proposed joint resolution 2026-1. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez. Aye. Councilmember Lundell.
Aye.
Councilmember Myers.
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes. All right. Okay. This is the time for public comment. So this will be the time to speak to the council on your concerns or ideas on any topic. Please come to the podium and give us your name and city and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And we want to appeal a little bit to you that we do have more work session we need to go to. So if you don't need to take your whole 3 minutes, don't feel obligated. So we can expedite this. And if it gets redundant, you don't have to say it twice. So.
Hi,
Yes, sir.
Phil O'Karma, retired city parks employee. Mr. Mayor, I understand you met with the school board to determine the Taylor property. On the diagram, it shows only 2/3 of the property being accounted for and the other third not. Was wondering how that's going to work out if the city proceeds with the purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Karma. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is David Belknap. I'm from West Haven. I'm the co-leader of Indivisible Ogden. First, I want to thank the council and Mayor Nadolski for the time that you give this process. I also want to apologize for the last meeting, as I was very tired and I don't think I properly acknowledged everyone here. So sorry for that. Today, however, I'm here to push back on something. Several weeks ago during the budget presentation, Mayor Nadolski, you told the council that the city had to hire 2 full-time officers to help with protesters. As you finished this statement, you turned and looked directly at me. That moment has been rolling around in my head ever since. Maybe no one else in this room noticed it. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but I noticed it. I took offense to it because I felt like a deliberate attempt to associate me and Indivisible Ogden with a problem that we did not create. The implication was clear that protesters were the reason the city needed additional officers. I disagree with that characterization. A more accurate statement would have been that officers were needed to protect peaceful protesters from people who wish to intimidate them. Indivisible Ogden is made up of largely older adults, grandmothers, grandfathers. Lost my place here. And community members exercising their constitutional rights. We are not the threat. We are the people showing up and speaking out. What frustrated me the most about the interaction was that it shifted attention away from the real issue. The discussion should have been about peaceful residents exercising their rights. It should have been about the concerns that brought people into the streets in the first place. I believe the city has chosen to align itself with ICE in ways that have damaged the trust in this community. Recent events have only reinforced that perception. When residents raise concerns about what is happening at the ICE facility, they deserve answers and accountability, not suggestions that they are somehow the problem. I wanted to address this publicly because I don't think that look or the message behind it should go unchallenged. I hope the city challenges or changes the approach to our community, listens to our people raising these concerns, and stops contributing to the harm that our residents are occurring or having happen to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Belknap.
Thordoros, Ogden resident. I'm not going to cover what David Belknap said as per Hire's request, but I did want to cover something that was mentioned in the work session. Chief Sube said that it was possible that Ogden City, due to the increased prices or increased overtime costs of protests, as previously mentioned, they might charge special events for any police presence. Now, that's unconstitutional for protests, so that leaves special events of a community nature that isn't political. And I think that is a really bad idea. Community events are really essential to bringing people into Ogden, and there's already a couple hurdles that prevent events from happening in Ogden. A Veterans Day event that used to occur annually here, I heard, moved because it was too pricey to hold special events in Ogden. I think that charging for special events and in regards to police is a bad idea, but also events in general and the degree of cost and the hurdles to jump over de-incentivizes people from holding events in Ogden. And since Ogden is one of 3 cities in Utah that are along the Wasatch Front that are really cultural hearts, that being Provo, Salt Lake, and Ogden, it's important that we take up that role on the Wasatch Front to be the heart of our area, to be able to host these events and not have them be moved off to Clearfield or other cities in Weber County. That Ogden be the place that people immediately think of when they want to hold an event. And the way we do that, the way we incentivize that, is by making the process cheap and easy. And beyond that, with, for example, the big boy train that occurred, I visited that and I wanted food after, and I could not get I couldn't go to a single restaurant because every single one of them was full. That's what these sort of special events bring to Ogden. They pack our businesses. They provide such important economic opportunities. They really fill Ogden with culture and money and all sorts of really important things. And it's important to incentivize they come here. Thank you.
Thanks, Thor.
Hi, I'm Stacia Ryder. I'm here to talk about Taylor Canyon Park. I want to give one quick broad thank you. I know a lot of people have worked really hard on this, but I have 3 minutes, so I'm not going to name everyone. I want to make 3 different types of arguments about why we should be keeping this park and supporting the plan that the mayor's put forward. 1, there are several economic reasons. 2, I think that this presents an opportunity to balance neighborhood and city needs. And 3, the importance of the place for the community. So first and foremost, I know that we're waiting for more data and information. I've been watching these conversations unfold, and I think that's a good thing. I'm a researcher. I always want people to make decisions informed by data. But I suspect that we will see low long-term maintenance costs of this park for a couple of reasons. The community's already put some of our own money in. One of the residents replaced the nets on the basketball hoops last year. He would have put nets on the goals, but we were going into winter. And so there is investment locally. We want to put our time and money into this park. I spend a lot of my time writing grants. I can work on developing partnerships between the community and the city and maybe even private interests. This is a great opportunity because you're not just buying the land, but you're also buying the infrastructure that's desirable for the community members, right? The playground, the basketball courts, we have a disability access ramp. There are trees, like older, medium growth trees, I don't know their age, and a fence that is already in place. Conservation and park creation is almost always a good return on investment. And so if there is a dire financial need in the future, I know that that's a concern for some of you. then that could be a time to think about selling it, not preemptively doing it because of some potential event in the future that doesn't currently exist. Let's see. Councilmember Lindell pointed out that this won't necessarily generate a massive tax revenue, but it could perhaps generate enough money to contribute to some of the costs of leaving part of this as a park. Oh, that took a lot of my time. In terms of walkability standards, when we're talking about parks this size, it should be between 1/4 mile and 1/8 of a mile. Larger parks, a 1/2 mile, but typically you want it to be under a 10-minute walk. Accessing trails is a different type of exercise. If I just need to get my 1-year-old and my 2 dogs out and I have to walk 15 plus minutes to a park, we're not going to spend that much time at a park because we're busy doing and balancing lots of things. And while we love trail access, it's just not the same type of use. If you haven't been to the neighborhood and walked the distance between the existing parks, I would encourage you to do that. There are several parks that are much closer to each other and much larger. Less Liberty are 2 blocks apart. Monroe is 5 blocks further than that.
Thank you, Stacia.
Yeah. And I'll leave some of the other arguments to email and some of my other neighbors.
Yeah, feel free to email us.
I didn't think I'd be back so soon, but I'm not as emotional this time. Thanks to Kevin. Oh, Arlo Kunzler, citizen, Ogden, right up here in Iowa. Thanks to Kevin and Mayor Nadolski for being involved in this. It means a lot to our neighborhood, and I appreciate the community development guy. I've seen his work around town. I walk a lot around town, so great improvements in central eastern Ogden. We appreciate it. But this park needs to happen. It's a great park. The school was built in 1950, but that green space was planned by the city long before, by our founding fathers. And so it's always been open space. When the school was there, it took up a very small footprint. It's always been a great park. But that big of a park, a solid city block park, is unique and valuable, much beyond just a park. And I have 5 grandkids. 2 different of my children live within 1.5 blocks, actually less than 1.5 blocks of that park. I live about 5 blocks. I'm in that park several times a week. Those stairs from the old school helped me with my rehab from a stroke I had a while ago. It is a unique, beautiful space. If you just go there and look at the views of that park, it has potential for so much. And a few houses is a compromise, but we don't need that small amount of revenue because all of the people who live around there, that's a draw for the neighborhood. Children and young families are coming back. My son is building an upstairs in his attic because they don't want to leave, but with number 4 kid coming, they need more room. And got a few more coming down the pike just in this area. Got them coming in Rexburg and Vegas as well, Roy. But we're building up Ogden as well. So please get behind this park. And let's get the whole thing, because it's a unique addition for our neighborhood, and it'll be a draw for young families to invest in Ogden, to be here. And we love everybody, but we want something for the kids too, for the future. And that's the place to do it, right here. Thank you for your time. Keep up your good work. Having stayed in a few of these meetings, I have a greater appreciation of your endurance for doing good work. Thanks.
Laura Lewis, Ogden City resident. First off, Mayor, thank you for the budget. This is the first time I think I ever know what's going on. So I appreciate all that detail. And I also appreciate all your work you've done on getting us the park to this point. Now we've got to get it over this hump, so I'll talk to you guys. You're going to put the money into it. if you go back and remember the well-being study that was done, 82% of the survey participants, and I believe there were 750 people that were involved in that study, 82% used public parks. And that's separate from trailheads or things like that. This is just parks. So parks are important to the people who live here, and I'm not saying you don't recognize that. But because they're so important, I think it's you need to put a little more effort into finding out how we can finance these things, these parks. There's not too many things that are free anymore. Parks are free. And a lot of people can't afford entertainment at Wonder Block and all these other things, but you can always go to the park for free. Like Stacy said, I was thinking, what grants are out there? I'm not sure if you're so concerned about the initial investment or just the maintenance of it over time. So if you're not concerned about the initial investment, then we just have to figure out how to pay for the maintenance. So, like I say, can we do this with grants? Are there other ways to come up with this money rather than assume that it has to come from taxpayers? As the mayor said, let's use other people's money. And there's a lot of benefits. You brought up some of them in your neighborhood. They create community. There's a lot to parks. So please don't just brush this off. Put some thought into it. Try to come up with other ways to finance this. Think positive.
Thanks, Laura.
Hello, the kingdom of heaven has come near to you. James Dixon, Ogden resident. Hello, folks. Thanks for being here. And citizens, I wanted to express a continued concern of deception that I've been speaking at previous meetings, and I'd wanted to add to it. It seems that it's just all up to us individually and collectively as to how things may go. I encourage increased awareness. The truth is out there, and I've spoken on it generally. For such truth can be very difficult for some to hear completely. So I believe it's all up to us. I encourage y'all to become aware and to get to my right. The battle is already won. It's just a matter of acknowledging the choice and choosing correctly. This, once again, is a matter that ought not affect the willing. All it takes is to be willing to see and to know how to overcome. I appreciate y'all hearing me out. Any matters that anybody has on anything that y'all would like help with, y'all are welcome to come to me. I like to make myself available to help anyone out with anything. And I think that might be all for now. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Laurel Hausch. I'm an Ogden resident. I moved here about 7 years ago and absolutely fell in love with the place. I'm up here to kind of go over the East Bench as well. Our neighborhood is amazing. Our neighbors are amazing. We are really trying to preserve like something really special up there. I know there's concerns about finances, but I think that the community and with what you guys have with this whole proposed quality neighborhood initiative renewal, like everything you were saying, Mr. Mayor, is like what we're trying to do in our neighborhood. So I just really want to thank you guys for just taking the time to listen to it, because it really is special to all the neighbors up there and our little community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That's what I thought too.
Well, hello, my friends. I don't think I've ever spoken from this position before. Hi, I'm Angela Chaburka, Ogden resident. I'm so happy to see you all, and it's really fun to be here with you. I have been tuning in a little bit too. So I just wanted to come and introduce myself. I've been doing this around the 3 different cities that are part of House District 9, which I'm running for again. I'm sure you all know that. House District 9 actually encompasses downtown Ogden, where I represented before, a part of East Central and also the Historic District, a small sliver of Roy, and a very large part of West Haven. So I've been visiting all those cities and introducing myself and meeting with constituents as well as representatives. And I wanted to do the same here, even though I know most of you. So the reason I'm running for this seat is because I feel like we couldn't do better. We can do better because a lot of people that I've been talking with or hearing when they're speaking in public comments, not only here but also at the state level, they really feel that they are being left out of the loop. They're not being represented by their representatives. They have a challenge because they've actually lost trust. They've lost trust in the institutions that we represent and in the processes that they feel alienated by. That was kind of the reason I ran for council too, by the way. Having a supermajority of one party does not serve the people. I would say that even if it was a Democratic supermajority, I promise you. Robust conversations and engagement between members of the legislature or the body that serves the community and among the constituents, of course, is what makes our country great. The people are the center of our democracy. I would say, I already said that. What happens when we have one party rule is that there's no incentive to engage, there's no accountability when swift decisions are made, and there's no fair way to fight back. And when there is a way, the current legislature has tried to change the rules that make it impossible. So we have to stand up for what is right. I stand for people, for workers' rights, for humane immigration systems, those who are celebrating Pride this month, women's health care and reproductive care access, children and families. We need to create policy that serves the people and not create the outcomes that we have today. Our community members are seeking leadership that will stand up for them when the going gets tough. Someone who'll reach out across the aisle beyond the divides and work for a better future for everyone. During my service with some of you, I hope that I really embodied that with you all as well. No matter your background, your perspective, or your political party, I'm always willing to work with you. So I'll reach out with an email to follow up as well. So if you'd like to meet to talk with me about issues that face you, I'm happy to meet. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Let's see, we have a couple of hands online. Teresa?
Good evening. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to say that I appreciate you all. I know I comment nearly every week, and I often forget to tell you how much I appreciate the efforts that are going into making Ogden City a better place. So thank you for that. Thank you to the mayor for all of his efforts and being transparent and putting together a budget that does not raise my property taxes. I really appreciate that. So a couple comments. The young man that spoke a few people back used a phrase that things need to be cheap and easy in the city of Ogden. He was referencing people coming in from out of town to do business in the city of Ogden at events. And while I think that has a value, I think what has more value to Ogden City is to make things cheap and easy for businesses that reside in Ogden City. There are so many businesses in Ogden that are vacant, that go bankrupt in less than a year, The business, environment in the city of Ogden is terrible because at least East Central, I know for sure, is in poverty. And so the people have no money. There's a lot of begging going on rather than spending, and, businesses just can't tolerate that. So the expenses that have been dramatically raised over the past 10 or 15 years on businesses to operate in the city of Ogden should be cheap and easy, like the young man said. And I think there is a lot of effort that needs to go into helping businesses survive and thrive in the city of Ogden, not just people that are coming from somewhere else for one day. So that's the first thing about the Taylor Canyon. I love that the lady said she could find private money. I think that's the best thing for this neighborhood that is already thriving. It's already wealthy. It's all single-family homes. There isn't a huge amount of poverty in it. There are already more parks in that area than anywhere else in the city. And so I would love to see private money come into that if they want that to be a park. Otherwise, I really like single-family homes there. Or I like the dual approach where some of it's going to become single family homes and some of it's going to be a park. The third thing, I was at my house to mow the lawn over the weekend, and I had about 10 pounds of dog poop on my lawn from probably the 350 dogs that are at the Quincy apartments. Was no place for those dogs to poop. So I'd love to see a dog park or somewhere for dogs to poop other than my lawn. Thank you.
I don't know if she gave her name, Teresa Bramwell. Did you get her? Okay, great. I think there is no sound on video. Was Heath?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to change that. If Angela is still there, I just wanted to say, it is hard to stay under 3 minutes sometimes. It's good to see her there. Happy Pride, everyone. And regarding the Taylor Canyon Park, I just want to make a quick comment. I'm normally all for additional housing, but I do want to hear more about why we cannot find a developer that can make the project pencil at the Aspen House location. I'm not sure what's up with that. And we also have seen the whole what are they calling it now? Washington Square, where JF Capital built actually a pretty nice place on the corner there. That's remained empty for so many years, where the Rite Aid used to be. If we can't get decent housing in those spaces, I'm not sure that we should maybe do housing at the Taylor Canyon site right now, and sort of leave that open and develop it as a park in such a way that it is always retained as sort of a thing the city can turn into housing easily further down the road when developers are finding it easier to make that pencil without all kinds of incentives. So just thought I'd throw that out there, and thanks.
Thanks, Heath. Okay. I think that's, I don't see any more hands. We've got a Marty N. Long.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Martin Long. I'm an Ogden resident. I didn't hear what the last guy said. Sorry, I'm trying to parent and listen at the same time. But I just wanted to talk on the Taylor Canyon Park. I think the kind of proposal that the mayor's put forwards is good. I think it's perfect to have it as like a split use, because I think there's just a few points to make. One is like the new revenue that will come from tax from the new properties would probably sustain whatever cost the park would have, like ongoing maintenance. I think the park also, is actually a fantastic opportunity, because you're buying a place that already has all the infrastructure that if you're trying to find new green space and park, you'd have to spend more than what probably the property value is now just to implement that. And I think the last thing we were talking about, like Ogden is a very already like full place. There's not much opportunities for new land, new parks. And I know that we currently don't have enough parks based on like a previous study. So if we lost this opportunity, it'd be such a shame, because at the end of the day, it's got fantastic views. It's got like fantastic infrastructure there, and it's enjoyed by the community. And I've spoken to people when I've been walking my dogs who drive from other places in town to come to the park because it's just a nice place to be. I think sorry, I had a few notes. I think the other thing is as well, like I know there's not really been much resistance to it. When it was like announced by the mayor, it was mainly just people supporting it. And I think, you know, the fact that there seems to be a bit of trepidation in going forwards with it, like it is an asset that's going to gain value. So if you did buy the park and we kept it as a park, and in the future, you know, it doesn't have to be a park forever. It's just if you don't make it a park now, you've lost that opportunity for the future generations, and it would just be really sad. So I think we shouldn't try and like get too bogged down with like the future, like beyond the point of just trying to save the park, and then they like, you know, see how it goes and let everyone enjoy it. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Mayor, would you like to answer any of those questions along with your comments?
I think you had one.
Do we have? Oh, we have another one. I'm sorry, I missed you. Come on up.
Hello, I'm Thomas Wolf, resident. I actually live right above the park. We've watched it be a closed school. Excuse me. School opened back up. It was great seeing the kids there playing. Closed down again, and then the school got torn down. That's been a park in that neighborhood for almost 75 years, I guess. And like the gentleman said before, the school took up very little of that property. You guys would be losing us a park instead of gaining a park. You're not really gaining a park. It's been there. It needs a little bit of massaging. It has sprinklers. It's got a backstop. It just needs some bases. I was the guy who put the nets up. The sprinklers work. Maybe they need some massaging. Very little investment. There's water and sewer there. If they ever put bathrooms in, it has a parking lot. Great opportunity for the city to take this, and it'd be sad to see them let it go through their fingers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, I just about missed you. Okay, Mayor.
Thank you. First, I want to start by first thanking the budget team for sticking it out and continuing to show up, and also thank the administrative staff that continue to show up and support the process as we continue to move forward. I hope we're meeting your needs and answering your questions, and thank you guys for your open minds and critical questions. I also want to thank the council for supporting the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. You might have noticed how passionate I am about that paradigm shift for our city. It has been, I'm just going to say, it's been a hard push. Not because Jeremy's been resistant, but because it's all departments. It's all things. It's changing the way we're thinking and investing in our community, and that doesn't come easy. And to operationalize it is one thing, to codify it is another, but to make sure that we're doing it in collaboration with community partners as well is a whole nother thing. So to be pushing this amount of change, in my view, this quickly is, I think is really impressive, but also really appreciated by those putting in the effort. So thank you so much for that. It means a lot to me. Hopefully the results will mean a lot to the city too. I think they will, because the neighborhood is where we live. That's where we build and grow and become. And it is the heart of our experience in our city. Some people live in different settings, and even to be in the downtown would be a neighborhood in and itself that would be chosen by people, and that they rely on those amenities around the downtown for that lifestyle. But I'm really excited about that, and thank you. I want to thank you guys for your support. To the question about what's how would it work for the Taylor Canyon property? My goal when I proposed what I did is to create an opportunity for a win-win-win, meaning a win for the neighborhood, a win for the school district, and a win for the city. It was hard to get to this point. It was. And I, again, thank the staff, Jeremy in particular. Starting to get a sense that Jeremy's a pretty good performer around here. The guy just hits dingers for us. But it was a challenging negotiation, not because the school district was hard to work with. That wasn't the case at all. They've been an awesome partner. But we had to agree to a process for how we got to a price. We agreed to do 2 appraisals. The appraisals came back with a pretty good spread between the 2. And the way that we agreed to arrive at a price, I would say benefited us more than it benefited the district. And so in that setting, the more that the district sold to us, the less that they would make. And to me, that's important that they come out whole so that they can invest in the future of our city through our children and their education. So it's hard to express a more important partner to the city than the school district. So their well-being and their goals are important to me. And so the proposal is roughly, not exactly, but roughly to capture the property that was always used as park space in the past and then as open space, and then to capture that which did have the school on it and that wouldn't be as useful for programming based on input from our staff for how we would rotate playable space for practices and ball fields and so on. That western side was not as useful for that. And so it seemed like a good opportunity for the school district to come out with a win, for us to come out with a win to capture some open space, but also to not burden future needs for maintenance, which is the questions you guys are asking. But also making sure that the neighborhood and the input that I heard from the neighborhood was incorporated, because like you just said, it's always been a park. In your mind, you've always used it as a park. It was a playground when school was in, but it was a park when school wasn't in. And I shared that use when my own kids played soccer there. I heard a lot about sledding on that hill on that side. I never did that, so I thought it was important to preserve that. So that was my mindset on the proposal that I put forward. It wouldn't cost more than necessary on the front end, and it wouldn't overly burden on the back end, and it would give the school district an opportunity to succeed, and it would meet most of the needs and wishes of the neighborhood, is my hope. And Laurel, thank you for your comments, and Stacia for your comments, and for coming to the Let's Talk the Ogden Way and sharing your input and having real conversations. And I just want to say to the neighborhood, including Mr. Kunzler and your family and everybody in your neighborhood, has been so kind. This hasn't been a freaking pitchfork thing and like us against them. This is the way it ought to be. I just really appreciate that, because we don't always get that. So thank you for being that. To Mr. Belknap, I don't remember the moment that I stared at you wrong. I'm sorry that I did. I am not the most agreeable person for everybody. I get that. So if I'm not your cup of tea, I can live with it. I honestly don't even remember the comment, nor do I remember quantifying 2 officers specifically as an offset for how much investment we put into protests. So I'm not sure what I was addressing. I'm wondering if I was addressing the SWAT issue, but I might be conflating. I've got a lot of stuff in my mind. Whatever I was addressing, I'm sorry that it offended you. What I'm not sorry about is I want to share some facts and also another perspective, okay? Because we've bent over backwards to support and protect your First Amendment rights, and we will continue to. Because there is no more fundamental requirement of us and of local government than to protect your rights, period. And that's why we have invested a ton of resources into protecting your rights. Your right to protest and to voice your opinion, and we will continue to. I know how other cities are dealing with it. I can tell you, I know that we're dealing with it better than others. I also know that we have restructured our entire command staff to make sure that we have bandwidth to plan for those events so that we can make sure that you guys stay safe and that we all stay safe. Okay? I also know that that is not coming for free. And so it is putting added stress and burden and demand on our officers and on our department. And every time we pay overtime to cover those events, of which there have been dozens, that means we are not achieving other mission critical things. I'm not here to capitulate or to make political points. I'm here to run and govern a city and to protect your rights. part of doing that means that I've got to be cognizant of the other missions, which include investigations and patrol and crime reduction, right? And victim advocacy and forensics and evidence, to just to name a few. To our drug task force, to our gang task force. Our police department is a very mature organization that's doing exceedingly good things. And I can't take them off mission all the time without being cognizant of what it costs us, okay? So we'll continue to show up to protect your First Amendment rights, but I'm not going to hide from the fact that it's not free. There's a transparency required of that too, okay? I'm not criticizing it at all. We're merely sharing facts that when we put proposals before this council for them to decide, that they're doing so and making decisions with full sight of what we're asking for. We're asking for extra police officers. And we are encountering an unprecedented amount of protests because of the issue you care about. Now, your issue is not something I don't care about. I never said that. So to imply that we've aligned with ICE in ways that have hurt the trust of the community is regretful for me, but I don't think I've aligned in the ways that you think I have. We can talk about it later, it's fine, but I want everybody to hear this because it's just a transparency thing. I don't want to see ICE doing what I saw on TV in Chicago or Minneapolis or Portland. I don't want our city to be that at all. In fact, I would stand up and fight against that every day if I saw it happening here. What I don't see happening is what's happening there. And there's reasons for that. It's because we are managing the issue in ways they didn't. And we're making sure that we're putting our foot down that it's not becoming that. So we'll continue to provide the records. Thor, thanks for the grammar request. You're going to get what you needed. Okay? That's not a secret. There's no secrets. What you're going to find is what I say here is reflective of what we do in the background. Okay? But what I'm not going to hide from as well is that we have also arrested some very bad people and removed them from our city. People that have harmed families and children in this city, and I will not back down or capitulate from doing that ever. So you can put whatever pressure you want on me, and I won't stop protecting kids and protecting families. But that is a big difference. And I think you guys actually agree with that. I think you want us doing that, right? But we are not Minneapolis in the way that we're engaging with ICE. We're engaging with ICE to get you guys answers to the questions that you're having, okay? But there's a big separation between the work that we do and the work that they do. We tried to make that clear. Left my glasses at home. I would love to talk to you, Thor, about events. Because I actually think you and I are in a lot of agreement, but I don't always agree with cheap and easy. Sometimes I do. So one of the elements of a good neighborhood is activated spaces as well. And I think it's important that we have a really low barrier process for running events, whether you want to run a small community-based event or if you want to run a big-time professional event. I also think that we should have venues that support both types and everything in between. And I think that we should align those types of events with our types of venues. And I think that we should be very transparent about where we're using taxpayer dollars, because if we're giving away services for events and then turning around and taxing people, I don't think that's transparent or fair. I think that if we're providing police or refuse or fire services for big professionalized events, that we should recoup that cost for taxpayers so that we don't increase taxes on them. Okay? But big professional organizers are used to that. They look for that and they appreciate it. So when we're talking about like an amphitheater, we shouldn't have a 3-day event running there with very low attendance that also closes down 25th Street. I think that that's an inappropriate location for that kind of an event for that long. I think that that should be shortened and condensed, or we should be looking at other areas to be doing those kinds of things. But I think that there's alignment that's necessary when we have that conversation. Cheap and easy sometimes, yes. Recouping services and costs and easy, yes. Okay? So I think you're actually on the same page as me, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Finally, Angela, good to see you. And on the question about Aspen House, I'll say that many of the properties, if not all of them, in the projects that we do require assemblage of property. Just today, I was having a conversation with a guy about assembling properties. If you go and develop converted farmland space, you purchase property, it's already in the position. You need to get it zoned and infrastructure, et cetera. In Ogden, we've got really compartmentalized properties, and we could develop that property today. It's a question of what do we get for it? And is it the highest and best use, or do we assemble more property nearby, or do we find a partner that wants to assemble more? And I think that there's more that could be done. Could we do it now? Yes. Will we get an amazing outcome by itself? Maybe fine. It might be fine. But I think there's a better outcome in the future. And I'm willing, like we have been on other projects, to wait and also to assemble further to get bigger and better impact for that property and for others. I think that's it.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council members.
I'd just like to thank everyone that came today and stayed through a long meeting to advocate for the things that you care about. It's an important part of the process, an important part of the job is to hear from our public. So I appreciate you doing that. I also appreciate folks like David Belknap who show up week after week to talk about how ICE affects our communities. I've had experience this week where community members who have been here for a very, very long time, children who were brought here by their parents on their own accord or not on their own accord, who are DACA recipients, who have not been able to get their DACA application renewed. It's being delayed, and they are then now being in danger of being without those protections. And those, and that means that they are also a target of ICE presence in our community. And so I just appreciate anyone who's willing to advocate for those in our community and those that continue to do that work in our community. I think it's really important. And we'll continue to hear you and do what we can, which is very little, but what we can on our end. So I appreciate you, and we'll continue to explore those avenues. At least I will. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Yes,
Sorry.
Councilmember Lopez.
It's okay, thank you. So first of all, I want to thank Laura. I hope I'm sorry, my apologies about the pronunciation. So for me, it's Laura. So it's more easy. For showing up and speaking up. Looks like you are afraid from public speaking. Continue doing it. So that is my advice for you. Continue doing it, continue showing up, and continue coming. Rewarding with the part is our duty have concerns. It's our duty get the data. Because we are not speaking about one neighborhood, we are speaking about all Ogden residents. And we need to take care from funding in order to cover other things as well. That doesn't mean I'm in favor and opposed to acquire the property. That means we need those conversations, we need to create extensions, so be patient about that. Rewarding with the comment about your friend, Councilmember Landon, with DACA and Science Citizen Record, your friend is not dangerous because they receive an extension. I have three very close friends of mine that they are delayed with the DACA and they receive an extension for continue work and continue doing their life. They don't receive the renewal yet, but they receive an extension. So I hope your friend receive that extension as well. So thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion, Councilmember Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Kraft to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
In the opinion of the chair, that passes. We have another couple of meetings to go, but we are going to take a 10-minute bio break. We've been sitting for a little while, so if you want to stay to the next meeting, it's going to be about 10 minutes away. So. Back now, don't we? All right, so let's call to order the June 2nd, 2026 Special Redevelopment Agency meeting, and let the roll call reflect that all board members are present, and Board Member Washington is online. Would you like to say hello?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you.
Okay, and the first item on our agenda is a public hearing concerning the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget. And we have Mr. Symes. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's too bad those folks left. I was going to say, I've been given presentations in council meetings for over 20 years, and it doesn't necessarily get easier over the years. So you get better at practicing, but still not my favorite thing to do. Well, as you mentioned, this is the consideration of the final RDA budget for fiscal year 26-27. And just to provide a little bit of background on the RDA, so it was created in 1969. You as council members also serve as the board for the RDA, and the mayor serves as the executive director. The RDA is staffed by community and economic development staff. And most of the governing regulations are in state code in section 17C. You can see on the right-hand side there all the different names of the areas, redevelopment areas, URAs, CRAs, EDAs. I think we have just about all of those, and a lot of that depends on what the state law was at the time. So some of these were developed at a time when the state code said you need to do an EDA or an RDA or URA. So you will see those through the budget, and that's primarily the reason why. So as far as funding, the RDA primarily gets its revenue from property tax increment. There is BDO lease revenue involved, some interfund transfers, some interagency transfers, and some interest incomes. And I think throughout the course of this evening, all of those have been mentioned. So just to give you an example of all of those. So this will be fairly high level. There was a budget presentation on the 12th when it was presented to you, as well as some time in a work session on the 26th. So if anybody's interested in going back and taking a deeper dive, those resources are available. So when we look at the overall budget and kind of the three big sections of the budget, you can see the administration section there, the district budget, and then the housing fund. The one thing I will mention, and I'm glad it was brought up earlier tonight, so you see that big jump, that $1.2 million jump in the RDA housing fund. In FY26, we would normally have had that extra $1 million for the quality neighborhoods. That was brought forward in FY25, and so there was $2 million in FY25, and then it wasn't funded in FY26. And so normally that FY26 number for the housing fund would be $2.2 million and not $1.2 million. And so it going to 2.5 shows a big jump, but had that been sequenced the way it was planned out, that would be a much smaller increase. So just wanted to point that out. So that also changes the overall budget and the percentage. So you see with that replacement of the quality neighborhoods money, that $1 million, that shows about 11% increase. If that were to be funded in FY26 the way it was programmed, that would jump down to about 5.38% increase. So just to give you some context on some of those numbers. So when we look at the districts, we've had conversations about all of these. Some of them are going down for various reasons, like the CBD Mall and 25th Street having to do with bond payoffs and other interfund transfers. Some going up. The airport, for example, there was a base year for that district is 2020, but we didn't start recognizing revenues until recently, and so there was a big jump in the funding for that, and so you see the big jump for that district, but overall, a pretty small increase of just about 3.6%, or just under $550,000. For the transfers, so again, I think we've talked about just about all of these tonight. The $780,000 for the Union Station land purchase, there's a couple more years on that. The $300,000 for the interfund loan for the CBD district, this is the last payment on that. The $350,000 for the St. Anne's property, again, this is the last payment on that. The $2.1 million for the Continental, this is the RDA portion, which is the joint venture for the Wonder Block development, not the parking structure. So you see the parking structure payment in the next meeting with the MBA budget. And that is a little bit less than the full payment. And again, we've talked about that. There's some interest that's being applied to the payment, so the transfer is a little bit less than the full payment required. And then the $1 million for Equality Neighborhoods. So, and as far as resources, so the budget book is available for the RDA as well as the RDA dashboard if people want to get more information about specific districts or specific dollar amounts or changes in the budget. And that's all I have for you. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Glenn? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to the RDA board on this issue?
Not seeing any movement in the room or hands online, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion, Councilman Rishi, second and thirded by Lindell and Myers. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
If there's no discussion, I'd make a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2026-2.
Second.
Have a motion by Board Member Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Graff, to adopt Resolution 2026-2. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Lopez? Yes. Board Member Lundell?
Yes.
Board Member Myers?
Aye.
Board Member Ritchie?
Aye.
Board Member Washington?
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. That passes. Next item on our agenda is the report from administration, proposed Quality Neighborhoods Initiative renewal. I have Jeremy Smith now. Welcome back, Jeremy.
Great to be back. So I'll just inform you, this presentation is the identical presentation to the one you heard earlier. I'm happy to go through it again one more time, but also happy to just answer questions. I'll leave that up to you if you like me to. I can third time the charm. This will be.
I feel like we could reference the previous presentation. If I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I am too.
I am too.
Yes. I don't have any other questions.
Since it's after 9.
Don't you feel like it's getting better though every time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was better than the work session for sure.
All right. Thank you.
See what he adds.
Thanks. Okay. This one we have not elected to take input on this time. So let's go ahead and discuss and or make a motion.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed resolution 2026-4.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Myers, seconded by Board Member Ritchie, to adopt Resolution 2026-4. This is a roll call vote also.
Board Member Lundell?
Yes.
Board Member Myers?
Aye.
Board Member Ritchie?
Aye.
Board Member Washington?
Aye.
Board Member Lopez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. That passes. Executive Director comments
None at this time, thank you.
and board members.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That's really a silly question. Okay. As soon as you're ready to go.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Night.
Thanks, Jeremy. See you later. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our June 2nd, sorry, I got a month ahead, June 2nd, 2026 Special Municipal Building Authority meeting. Let the record reflect that all trustees are present, with the exceptions of Trustee Washington, who is online. Say hello, Trustee Washington.
Hello.
Okay. The first item on our agenda is public hearing for proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 budget. We have Mr. Steve Burton here to present. Welcome, Steve.
Good evening, Chair, trustees, Mr. President. They give me this budget because it's the easy one, although there's a little more detail to this one than there has been in years past. But the reason I like this one is because if you look at the line item budget, it's really broken up into just 3 different categories. So I'll go over those with you here. So the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget for the Municipal Building Authority, as you can see here, totals approximately $8.1 million, an increase of about $3.9 million or 92% compared to last year's adopted budget. Looking at those line items, you can see that the debt service line remains roughly the same as the previous fiscal year at approximately $4.2 million, and continues to represent the largest ongoing expenditure for the MBA. That's the debt payments associated with the Wonder Block parking structure. And then under Department Administration line item, I like this one because if you look at the percentage of the change, I had to double check my math on that a few times. It changes quite a bit. And I'll go into that just briefly here. So the primary driver of that budget increase is approximately $3.5 million budgeted for improvements associated with Wonder Block parking structure, including improvements directly around it, so along Grant and Lincoln and 25th. That line item budget under administration also includes $250,000 set aside to address federal requirements related to the interest earnings generated from those bond proceeds. The budget also includes, you can see under transfers, a $166,000 transfer related to the Marshall White Center new market tax credit financing structure that the council looked at. I believe it was last year when that originally came about. But what that does is it returns funds back to the city as contemplated by that arrangement. It's a lot better explained by the finance folks and Justin, but that's kind of the gist of it. And then just on the revenue side, the budget is primarily supported by lease payments from the Parking Mobility Fund that you saw earlier this evening, and interest earnings generated from previously issued bond proceeds. So a little bit of history behind the board's review of this. The board reviewed this budget during the May 12th work session. At that same evening, the board set a public hearing for consideration tonight. So that is all 2 slides of the MBA budget. I'm happy to hear what your questions are, although I may not be able to answer them the best. I sure can try. So,
any questions for Steve? Sounds like you're off the hook.
Cool.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing also. Looking for anybody who wants to speak to us about this item.
Chair, I'd make a motion we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Chair, I'd make a motion we adopt proposed resolution 2026-1.
I have a motion by Trustee Ritchie, seconded by Trustee Lopez, to adopt resolution 2026-1. This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Lopez?
Yes.
Trustee Lundell?
Yes.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Ritchie?
Aye.
Trustee Washington?
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. That passes. Comments from the president. Mr. President, I've just been dying to say that.
El Presidente to you. Just kidding.
Presidente.
No comments tonight. Thank you.
Okay, trustees, any comments?
Move we adjourn.
Okay, that's a good comment.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. This is voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. We do have